Hello, I'm Jamie, and welcome to Decula's Library's World Ocean Day celebration. We have a lot of interesting speakers and cool activities lined up for you today. But first, we have some general information to share. We are so glad that you could join us today, but in order to make sure everyone can enjoy our speakers and activities, please remember to keep your mics muted throughout the presentation and your cameras turned off. If you haven't yet, please don't forget to sign up for GCPL's Summer Reading Challenge on Beanstack. You can access it through our website, gwinnettpl.org. Once you sign up, you will log the number of minutes or number of books that you read depending on which age bracket you fall into, and also complete different activities to earn badges. You can log your time or books using a computer or download the Beanstack app on your phone. If you need help with this, please feel free to call our customer contact center or stop by your local library. Any library staff member would be happy to assist you. Every child from birth to age 17 has the chance to win up to 4 books as you complete a certain number of books in minutes, and you also have the chance to enter a grand prize. Adults can get on the fun too. You all have the chance to earn free bookmarks and entries into grand raffle prizes. Once you have an account on Beanstack, and after attending all or part of the World Ocean Day celebration, you can log on to Beanstack to answer a couple questions and to earn your Beanstack badge. After watching our presentation today, we also have a survey for you to fill out and enter for a chance to win a door prize. This is our 4th year celebrating World Ocean Day, so we'd love to know your thoughts about what you love and what we can make better next time. Follow this link or snap a picture of the QR code using your smartphone's camera. Today's program runs from 10 to 4 with a different speaker and activity each hour. We would love for you to stick it with us throughout the day, but if you want to come in and out, the Zoom link we've provided will let you return at any time. We will also be recording today's program, so if you missed something you really wanted to see, you can catch it later on our YouTube channel. Today's lineup includes Marion Baker from the Go Fish Museum, Jim Page with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, a lunch break at 12 featuring fun ocean facts throughout the hour, Peggy Whitlow with Charm, Dr. Alber from the University of Georgia, and Hannah Bonvechio, founder of the Trash for Turtles project. Each hour will feature a Q&A session, a short video about our world's oceans, and activity. Supplies for each activity are in your make and take bags that we prepared and distributed in the weeks leading up to today. But if you don't have any of the materials, they are all things that you should be able to find at home. As for the Q&A session, please feel free to put your questions into the chat throughout our speakers' presentations. We will be monitoring the chat and can ask those during the Q&A. You can find the chat box at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you hover over the mouse or tap the screen to make the Zoom options appear, click the one that says Chat to open the chat box. Now, before I introduce our first speaker, you may be wondering, what exactly is World Ocean Day? In 1992, Canada had the idea of a day to celebrate and raise awareness for the world's oceans at the Earth Summit, held in Rio, Brazil. But it wasn't until 2002 that the organization called the Ocean Project began really promoting and coordinating this celebration as we know it. Even so, it took until 2008 for the United Nations to officially recognize June 8 as World Oceans Day. The World Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council is now in charge of the summit. Since then, there have been thousands of events in hundreds of countries with a single mission: to unite the world to celebrate the ocean and to take action regarding the urgent need for conservation and restoration. So with that in mind, let's move on to our first speaker. Marion Baker is the curator and educator at the Go Fish Education Center, located in Perry, Georgia. She coordinates information, education, and outreach efforts for the center. Over the past 6 years, she has developed and guided programs that facilitate the recruitment, retention, and reactivation of anglers in Georgia. These programs expose new audiences to fishing and boating and inspire a culture of conservation. She has worked in the Georgia Department of Natural Resources since 2012. Prior to this, she gained experience in the Aquaculture Fishery Center located at the University of Arkansas in Pine Bluff, before transferring to the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. She began her career as a seasonal research technician for the University of Florida, studying beach mice populations along the Gulf Coast. She has a Bachelor of Science in Wildlife and Ecology and Conservation from the University of Florida. Marion is a member of the American Fisheries Society and the Georgia chapter of the American Fisheries Society. She serves on several committees for the chapter and recently was honored to accept the role of president-elect. She is passionate about fish and wildlife conservation and has learned to like humans too. She is married and has 2 daughters, ages 8 and 3. They enjoy fishing and collecting rocks and fossils. Please join me in welcoming Marion Baker.
Hi, my name is Marion and I'm the educator at the Go Fish Education Center in Perry, Georgia. The Go Fish Education Center is owned and operated by the Wildlife Resources Division of the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. I'm so glad that I can be a small part of this important event. Today, I want to talk to you about Georgia's rivers and conservation. Now, you may be asking yourself, I thought this was World Oceans Day. Why do we need to learn about rivers? Well, the short answer is because rivers lead to the ocean. You see, water obeys the rules of gravity and tries to get to the center of the earth. As water in rivers flows downhill, some of it may get diverted along the way and end up in a lake or reservoir, in a pipe aimed at a farm field, in a local swimming pool, or in your drinking glass. However, much of it eventually ends up back in the oceans, where it rejoins the water cycle, which is always in progress. On the left is a map provided by Visual Capitalists of the watersheds that exist in the United States. In Georgia, we have over 12,000 miles of warm water streams and over 4,000 miles of cold water streams. 3.2% of the total area of Georgia is covered in water. Protecting our oceans begins with conservation of freshwater rivers and reservoirs. Georgia's 7 main rivers include the Altamaha, Chattahoochee, Flint, Ocmulgee, Oconee, Savannah, and St. Mary's. Amicalola Falls, which is the largest waterfall east of the Mississippi River, is located along the Little Amicalola Creek. This creek is a tributary of the Etowah River. The Etowah River also goes underground for about a quarter mile or so. The Chattahoochee River is another beautiful river. I mean, how often do people write songs about ugly rivers? The Chattahoochee River's name is derived from Creek Indian words meaning painted rock. Did you know that this river provides 70% of Atlanta's drinking water? In Georgia, we are fortunate to have an ocean coastline as well. This means we have freshwater, saltwater, and brackish environments. The term brackish refers to water that is only slightly salty, and it usually occurs in places where rivers meet seawater in estuaries. The fish species found in freshwater are usually very different from those found in saltwater. That's because fish are uniquely adapted to living in certain environments. If a freshwater fish, such as a largemouth bass, were placed into the ocean, it would not survive. That's because the body of a largemouth bass cannot regulate the concentration of salt that's found in the ocean. Similarly, a saltwater fish, like a red snapper, will likely not survive if placed into a body of freshwater. There are some fish that spend different stages of their life in different types of water. There are many types of freshwater bodies in Georgia, including lakes, reservoirs, ponds, rivers, creeks, and streams. A pond is usually a small body of still water, maybe a couple acres in size. A lake is defined as a large body of water surrounded by land. Lakes in Georgia are much larger and usually at least 100 acres in size. Most lakes in Georgia are reservoirs that are man-made and often used as a source of water supply. Our rivers are natural streams of flowing water. Rivers often have many creeks and minor tributaries associated with them. Biodiversity is a combination of both the number of species in a given area as well as their relative abundance. Biodiversity is often used as an indicator of how healthy an ecosystem is. As you can see, Georgia ranks third highest in freshwater fish diversity out of all states in this country. Keep in mind that this is freshwater fish and does not even consider our fish species that live in our oceans, which are saltwater. The majority of our fish species are found in rivers, creeks, streams, tributaries, and etc. Aquatic refers to anything that is related to water. Georgia has a variety of aquatic habitats, and they differ depending upon which ecoregion they belong. Georgia has 5 ecoregions, including the Appalachian Plateau, Valley and Ridge, Blue Ridge Mountains, Piedmont, and the Coastal Plain. Here at Go Fish Education Center, we have over 200,000 gallons of freshwater aquariums, which represent aquatic habitats found in 4 of the 5 ecoregions. The aquariums are separated based upon ecoregion and include plants and animals commonly found in each. I'd like to take you on a quick tour, which begins with the mountain streams of northern Georgia and ends in our Blackwater Swamp in southern Georgia. Georgia's mountains are ancient tree-covered mounds. Their sharp peaks and ridges have eroded over thousands of years of rain. The streams that flow and fall through the mountains are clear, cold, and full of oxygen, creating healthy habitats for trout, walleye, smallmouth bass, yellow perch, and lake sturgeon. Georgia's mountain streams are full of fish that utilize the many riffles, pools, and falls. Fish that live in these mountain streams have become adapted to living in cold water that is highly oxygenated. Trees left along stream banks provide shade to keep water temperatures cold. The many spectacular waterfalls in the North Georgia mountains contribute to the oxygenation. Most of the fish you see here are trout. We have 3 types of trout in Georgia: the rainbow trout, brown trout, and our state cold water fish, the southern Appalachian brook trout. Trout rely upon clean, cold water to survive and reproduce. As you can see, trout are fast and strong and feed voraciously. In fact, they spend most of the day feeding. The next ecoregion to the south of the mountains is called the Piedmont. Georgia's Piedmont forms a gently rolling landscape separating the mountains from the coastal plain. Comprising about 1/3 of the state, the Piedmont's pine-covered hills hold many of the state's reservoirs. Most of these reservoirs are man-made and are stocked and supplemented with fish grown and raised in hatcheries. Many largemouth bass, which is our official state fish of Georgia, can be found in our Piedmont Reservoir exhibit. The fish species found in Piedmont reservoirs is slightly different than those found in Piedmont rivers and streams. Extensive shoal habitats frequently occur along the fall line in Piedmont streams. Shoal areas have swift water and rocky substrates that are important spawning areas for fish. Types of fish include American shad, darters, and shoal bass. The shoal bass requires the flowing water provided by these rivers to survive, so it's only found in rivers. This imperiled species has just recently become the official state native riverine sport fish of Georgia. As we continue our journey south in Georgia, we reach the next ecoregion, which is the coastal plain. The coastal plain region is known for its flatlands, marshes, and swamps. It is the largest region of Georgia. This region can be divided into 2 subregions, the upper coastal plain and the lower coastal plain. The upper coastal plain receives runoff from the mountains and is a good region for agriculture. Many lakes can be found in the upper coastal plain. The lower coastal plain consists mainly of rivers and wetlands. Major rivers of the coastal plain include the Ocmulgee, Flint, Savannah, Oconee, Altamaha, Suwannee, Satilla, and St. Mary's. One of the best-known wetlands in the U.S., the Okefenokee Swamp, is in the coastal plain. This area covers the southern and southeastern half of Georgia. The Okefenokee Swamp is a blackwater swamp, meaning the water is much darker than you see here. The dark color is due to tannic acid, which is released by plants that are decaying in the water. This mild acid is not bad for fish and kills some bacteria that could harm fish. One fish here that we have not yet seen elsewhere is the bowfin. They can reach 3 to 4 feet long and are very skilled predators. They have many teeth and can usually be found sitting on the bottom of the exhibit or hiding in algae. Alligator snapping turtles are often present in swamps. They like slow-moving waters where they can blend in easily with algae and debris in the water. When it gets hungry, it simply sits still and opens its mouth. It has an appendage in its mouth that looks like a small worm. The movement of this appendage underwater attracts fish. Once fish are close enough, the turtle will snap its beak closed and consume. We also have 3 large alligators here at Go Fish. There are estimated to be hundreds of thousands of American alligators living in the Okefenokee Swamp. In Georgia, female alligators grow to an average size of 10 feet, while males grow larger. Our alligators don't get quite as large as those in Florida due to the difference in climate. Alligators are opportunistic feeders, which means that they will eat pretty much anything if the opportunity presents itself and they're hungry. This includes fish, turtles, mammals, snakes, and even other alligators. Welcome back. Now that you've seen examples of aquatic habitats in Georgia, I want to talk to you about something called conservation. Conservation is defined as preventing the wasteful use of a resource. Why is conservation important? In order to maintain our rich diversity and healthy aquatic habitats, conservation of our natural resources is essential. Georgia is the black bass capital of the world, meaning Georgia holds the highest diversity of black bass species. The shoal bass is one of these species that is important to conserve. It can only be found in one other state, Florida. Georgia also holds the current world record for the largest largemouth bass. This fish was caught in a former oxbow, which no longer exists, of the Ocmulgee River. The mission of the Wildlife Resources Division is to conserve, enhance, and promote Georgia's fish and wildlife resources and outdoor heritage through management, education, and scientific research. Georgia's rivers face many threats. There are many types of pollution that exist, such as air, water, light. Aquatic nuisance species refers to plants and animal species that are brought here but are not supposed to be here. When not properly controlled or taken care of, these species cause harm to our natural resources and the fish and wildlife that depend on them to survive. Our rivers also collect harmful chemicals and toxins from leaching and runoff. Erosion refers to the soil, especially along banks of rivers, being gradually worn away. Sedimentation is the gradual accumulation of sediments. The roots of plants and trees along riverbanks can help prevent these processes. So when this vegetation is removed, it can increase the occurrence of these issues. Because rivers are always in motion, they are always changing. This graphic demonstrates a few things rivers are constantly impacted by, as well as the effects caused by rivers. Our goal is to minimize the negative factors impacting our rivers. You see, rivers will pass on whatever you place into them. If you introduce negative factors such as nuisance species, pollution, and etc., these will be passed along and spread to other places. If we can remove or minimize these impacts, we have the potential to control their spread to our oceans. Parents may know a thing or two about this because I often compare our kids to rivers. Kids will often pick up both good and bad habits demonstrated by their parents. As parents, we often don't notice this impact until our kids begin demonstrating these habits themselves. There are many things you can do to become stewards of our natural resources. First, please don't release pets, including aquarium fish. On the bottom of the photo on the left is a goldfish that was sampled from a lake. Also, don't move rocks. The middle photo is a picture of some rocks that were obviously placed into the shape of a heart. While this may be cute for your Instagram feed, this can increase erosion and destroy habitats for fish and wildlife. Properly dispose of trash. Trash is unsightly and can pollute the environment or be mistaken as food by wildlife. Items like six-pack plastic rings, helium balloons, plastic grocery bags, glass bottles, and motor oil especially pose threats to unsuspecting animals. Reuse and recycle when possible. Lastly, you can conserve water. The less water we use from the ground, rivers, or lakes means more water for wildlife and for future Georgians. To avoid wasting water, take short showers, turn off the faucet while brushing your teeth, only run full laundry and dishwashing loads, and fix leaky plumbing. You can also capture rainfall in a rain barrel or cistern to water plants. Retain soil moisture by adding mulch to your garden beds. Here are some photos of fish that have been harmed by trash people left behind. You see, even if trash is left along the bank of a river or pond, it will still likely end up inside the water. As you can see, this is harmful for fish and the environment. Whether it belongs to you or someone else, picking up trash benefits both people and wildlife. The picture of objects above the alligator image displays the discovered contents of an alligator's stomach. While it may not seem fair to pick up other people's trash, I always strive to leave places in a better shape than I found them. If you choose to do this, please make sure you do it safely and protect yourself. Organizing group efforts to pick up trash around a specific area can add a layer of comfort and protection. I want to encourage you to get outdoors this June for National Rivers Month. There are entities already in place that organize cleanups and other efforts that you can get involved in. I've included an image of the Flint River Keeper. However, each major river in Georgia has its own river keeper. Your local river keepers are experts on the best ways people can help and get involved. There are so many benefits to spending time outdoors and exploring Georgia's rivers and natural resources. It can be difficult to appreciate our resources if you only see them in pictures. Fishing is a great way to connect with nature and learn more about our resources. I encourage everyone to recreate responsibly and go fishing. We refer to people that fish as anglers, and they are often the most avid conservationists. That's because they care about our resources and have a vested interest in conserving them. Ethical anglers follow the laws and limitations put in place by Georgia DNR. Georgia's fishing regulations are updated annually and available online for free. These regulations are put in place for a reason, and that reason is to help conserve and sustain our natural resources into the future. Be sure to use proper fishing methods and tackle and practice safe handling and release of fish. When releasing fish you catch, be sure to return it to the same water body it came from. Rinse, drain, and dry boats and equipment before launching at new locations. This will help to prevent the spread of aquatic nuisance species. Recycle used fishing line when possible. Monofilament fishing line takes 600 years to break down. If you do not have access to a fishing line recycling container, Wind the line tightly and cut the line into many small pieces to prevent wildlife entanglement. There are also companies that accept used soft plastic lures. They take these lures and remove scents, glitter, and salt and turn them into material used in the coating of power lines. The Pitch It campaign takes it a step further and informs anglers of added measures they can take when rigging to help retain their lures and prevent them from winding up in waterways. As stewards of the environment, ethical anglers properly dispose of litter, especially fishing gear like soft plastic lures. On the left is a photograph of various fishing tackle that was pulled from the bottom of a lake. Soft plastic lures that are left in water become swollen and waterlogged, making them an even bigger threat to fish and wildlife. One species of bird, called a Carolina wren, built this nest out of tangled fishing line that was not disposed of properly. While creative and resourceful, this is not what Carolina wrens should be using to build nests. Don't forget that ethical anglers handle fish properly if they plan to release. The Wildlife Resources Division of the Georgia Department of Natural Resources issues licenses for fishing privileges in fresh and saltwater and for hunting. A valid basic hunting or fishing license also provides access to state properties for other recreation such as hiking, bird watching, and similar activities. All proceeds from fishing licenses are used to fund local programs that promote conservation and protection for the wildlife in the area. These projects help in the proliferation of marine life and the ecosystem. Your awareness in these efforts will help in preserving the environment for generations to come. Fishing licenses also make great gifts. The brook trout license plate is another way to support aquatic conservation in Georgia. If you're interested in fishing, we have the tools to get you started. Come visit us at Go Fish Education Center. You can check out free passes at your local libraries. We offer fishing day camps each summer and fishing workshops for families. Free loaner tackle is available at 25 state parks in Georgia. Thank you all for having me. You can wake up now if I put you to sleep. I've included my email address and the address of Go Fish. Please don't hesitate to reach out for more information. I am glad to help anyone interested in fish, fishing, or conservation. If there's time, I'm glad to take any questions y'all may
have. Now to start off the Q&A question, we'll look at the questions submitted via chat. If you think of questions during the Q&A, go ahead and submit them in the chat. Okay, Marion, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, one of our first questions is, what is your favorite part of your job?
Wow. Well, I have a lot of things I really enjoy about it, but nothing really beats the moment when you can actually help someone, a child or an adult, catch their first fish. For sure. That's a moment that is priceless to me. And I love that I get to be a part of it.
Okay, another one is, what is your most memorable experience from working with an aquatic animal?
Well, one time I can remember, it was a long time ago, but I was out on a boat in a lake sampling, and we were electroshocking in order to determine the fish population that existed in the lake. And I went down, I saw a fish that I was about to go net so that we could take its length and weight measurements and record some data. And I went to go net a fish that I saw. And as soon as I put my net down into the water, I realized that it was actually the head of an alligator. And and so the alligator obviously did not want a net on its head, and so it opened its mouth up at me and tried to bite at the net. And that's something I will definitely never forget. It didn't get a hold of the net, but something I'll never forget.
Yeah, I bet you're very thankful it didn't get a hold of that. Okay.
Are catfish whiskers sharp or not sharp?
Are catfish whiskers sharp or not sharp?
So with catfish, yeah, so they're actually called barbels, but they do look like whiskers, but the barbels that come off of their head, they are not sharp. The part of the catfish that is sharp are the spines on the fins, especially the pectoral fins and the dorsal fin. It does have sharp spines there. If you just have to make sure you hold them properly so that you can avoid getting injured. But yeah, their barbels are actually very soft and not harmful.
Good. Okay. Another question. Are alligator snapping turtles found in only South Georgia, and what environmental requirements determine where they are found?
So with alligator snapping turtles, they tend to eat fish, and so they're usually found in and around water, or where fish can be found. That's not all they eat, however, and they are not just found in South Georgia. In fact, I live in Middle Georgia, and I was out, let's see, the other weekend, and I saw one in a very, very, very tiny little creek that I would never have thought a large alligator snapping turtle would be, but it was there. And so they can exist all over the state.
Okay. How bad is a sea turtle bite?
Ooh, that I don't know, but I would not want to be on the other end of one. I don't yeah, I've never been in the water with a sea turtle. I've only looked at them through, at an aquarium.
Our next question is coming from Rebecca. What kind of fish can she see at the Go Fish Education Center?
Oh my goodness, we probably have hundreds of species of fish. In our mountain stream exhibit, we always have trout. We also have walleye and smallmouth bass. We have large and sturgeon. Yeah, that's a really interesting fish that a lot of people, you don't see them a lot. So a lot of people don't think about them, especially being in Georgia. We have shoal bass, largemouth bass, several different species of black bass, and gar. That's one that a lot of, especially kids, like to look at because they have really, really long snouts or rostrums that are just loaded with hundreds of tiny, sharp teeth. And we even have eels and sirens, catfish, all kinds.
Are eels freshwater?
Eels are actually catadromous. Well, at least the American eel, the one that we have here. And so what that means is that they spend most of their life in freshwater, but they will often migrate to the sea or to saltwater to spawn or reproduce.
Is there a fish other than a shark that can hurt you?
Is there a fish other than a shark that can hurt you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even a little small trout actually has teeth in their mouth, and so they can definitely hurt you. There's a lot of fish that have teeth. Like I mentioned the gar a while ago, they have teeth which can hurt you. I'm not saying that though to scare you all away from fish, but it is important to respect them and when they're in their environments, and yes, they can hurt you.
Another question. Our region is the Piedmont region. What aquatic habitat is the biggest in our region, and what is the most prominent fish?
I would say probably, I don't know exactly which one would be the largest in that region. Sinclair, Lake Sinclair might be the largest in that region. And what was the other part of the question?
What is the most prominent fish?
Wow. I would say any of the sunfish species. Sunfish, the sunfish family includes brim, bluegill, bass. I would say the sunfish is probably the most abundant.
Do you have sharks or piranhas at Go Fish Aquariums?
No, but that would be really, really neat if we did. We do not have them at the center currently. Sorry.
Okay.
What's your favorite whale?
And last question, because we're running out of time. What is the most prominent trout in Georgia?
Well, I would probably say the rainbow trout, which mainly because that's one of the main ones that we stock, as the fishery section of Georgia DNR actually stocks rainbow trout in various areas around the state, especially in North Georgia in those streams and rivers. Yeah, rainbow trout, I would guess.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing. So that concludes our Q&A session with Marion. Thank you again for your participation and for answering everyone's questions. If anyone is interested in learning more about the Go Fish Education Center, please be sure to check out their website at gofisheducationcenter.com. You can also borrow a Go Fish Education Center family pass from GCPL if you would like to visit in person. So, thank you, Marion.
Thank you for having me.
I hope that this helped you have a better understanding. Now let's get creative.
Today we are making an octopus puppet. For this, you will need colored pencils, scissors, glue, and your octopus printout. Welcome to making your octopus puppet. The first thing you will need is your octopus printout. We want to begin by coloring your octopus. Once your coloring is complete, we'll want to cut out the head and the body of your octopus. When the head and the body of your octopus have been cut out, you'll want to take your paper bag with the flappy part facing up, and then you'll take your glue or your glue stick. You will put some glue on the back of this head here, and then you can line up the straight edge of the head with the edge of the flap on the bag. Make sure to press down firmly so that everything sticks. Then you'll want to put glue on the body and line that body up with the smile, with the little round part of your octopus's smile, and then make sure to press firmly to get it to adhere to your bag. Now comes the fun part. You stick your hand in and make your octopus's mouth move. Now, if you do have a shorter hand or arm that you're dealing with, you can cut off your bag. Beware of rolling pencils, but cut off your bag to make it a little shorter and easier to manage for smaller hands. And there we have our octopus puppet, and enjoy.
What an adorable octopus puppet. If you would like to share your puppet with us, drop by the Decula branch this month to have your picture taken of your craft for us to display at the library. You can also email a photo of your craft to daclib@gwinnettpl.org with WOD as the subject line. Please include the first name of the artist so that we can give proper credit. If you would like to learn more about octopodes, check out some of these additional resources available through GCPL. Our next hour will feature Jim Page from the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, but we are going to take a brief brain break before he joins us. Please use this time to get away from the screen and stretch your legs a bit, and we will see you back here at 11. But if you are unable to join us for any of the other presentations today, here are a couple reminders. Sign up for GCPL's Summer Reading Challenge on Beanstack to log books or minutes, complete activities for badges, including the World Ocean Day badge, and win prizes. And please fill out our brief survey for your chance to win a door prize. Otherwise, we'll see you back here in a bit. Okay, welcome back to those of you who are rejoining us for our next presentation of Decula Library's World Ocean Day, and welcome to those of you who are joining us. I'm Jamie, and as a reminder, we are recording all of today's program, so if there are parts that you've missed, you will be able to go to GCPL's YouTube channel and watch them later. Please remember to keep your mics muted and your cameras off so that we can all enjoy listening to the speakers. If you would like to ask questions as our speakers are presenting, please drop those in the chat box and we will include them in the Q&A session and after our next speaker's presentation. Also, if you haven't already, go ahead and sign up for GCPL's Summer Reading Challenge on Beanstack. To do so, visit our website and follow the links to create an account. You will log books or minutes depending upon your age bracket, plus complete activities to earn badges, including a World Ocean Day badge, and will have the chance to win different prizes depending upon your age bracket. Kids can win and adults can win bookmarks. Our program runs until 4 o'clock, but the Zoom link we provided will enable you to rejoin the broadcast as you like. We also have a survey, and we would really appreciate you answering. If you do fill it out, you'll be entered to enter a drawing for some door prizes. Finally, here's a quick look at some of the speakers that we have lined up for the rest of the day, starting with our 11 o'clock speaker, Jim Page. From the time Jim held the cane pole and watched the bobber go down, he found himself sharing one thing in common with the bluegill on the other end. They were both hooked. Between growing up in Georgia fishing in clay-stained waters in Lake Sinclair to chasing trout in reds in Georgia's turbid coastal waters, Jim found the sight of a cork disappearing beneath the water's surface and the tug of the fish on the end on the line irresistible. The passion eventually led to the University of Georgia's Warnell School, where he completed his Bachelor of Science degree in wildlife in 2000. Shortly after graduation, Jim began his career with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. Shortly after beginning his career, he attended graduate school in the evenings and obtained his master's degree in marine science in 2007. He has worked with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources for 20 years, beginning as a technician and now working as a senior fisheries biologist. In Jim's current role, one of his primary responsibilities is serving as the Aquatic Nuisance Species Coordinator for Georgia. This entails serving as the project lead for Flathead Catfish removal in the Satilla River, helping coordinate many statewide responses we have to ANS introductions, and developing and employing education and outreach efforts to inform students and adults about our ANS in our state. While Jim's love of fishing and working in fisheries certainly continues to be an important part of his life, perhaps the greatest titles that he carries are those in his personal life. One of those is husband to wife April, to whom he has been blessed to be married to for 17 years. The other will be the best title of all, Dad. Dad to two sons, Garrett, 14, and Stetson, 1, alongside their daughter, Gracelyn, 11. For his two oldest kids, they found themselves just like their dad when it comes to fishing, hooked. Everyone, please welcome Jim Page.
Hey guys, hope you're doing well. My name is Jim Page, and I'm a senior fisheries biologist with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, Wildlife Resources Division. I also serve as the State Aquatic Nuisance Species Coordinator, and I wanted to take a few minutes today to talk with you about a topic that I think is really cool, but yet really important too, ANS, or Aquatic Nuisance Species. Before I begin, I'd like to extend my appreciation for the opportunity to get to speak with you today, and I hope that you're really excited to hear about the crazy critters that we know as ANS. As you see from this overview slide, we'll talk about 3 topics today. First, we'll take a look at exactly what are ANS, or aquatic nuisance species. It's really important that we first understand what these critters are and what makes them such a problem. Second, we'll discuss some examples of ANS that may be found either in Georgia or in nearby states adjacent to us. As we look at these examples, it's important to note that these are not all of the ANS that we're battling within our area, but rather they're the ones that I've highlighted for our discussion today. Finally, we'll look at some basic principles that you can do to help us in our fight to control and prevent ANS. It really takes each of us to win this battle, so we really need your help. So, are you ready to dive in and learn about ANS? I sure hope so, because here we go. Okay, before we talk about examples of ANS in Georgia, it's important we all understand what exactly are we referring to. Aquatic nuisance species, or ANS, are non-native or invasive organisms that have been introduced into an area and are causing problems in their new homes. They've been moved from watersheds where they're native to ones where they are not. In their new environment, they often threaten the diversity and abundance of native species, and they have the potential to threaten human health. ANS can have severe negative ecological and economic impacts to the ecosystems they invade, as we see with the millions of dollars in damage caused by zebra mussels and the countless native species hurt by introductions of new apex predators. ANS may be introduced into an area by natural events like hurricanes or floods, but more times than not, they're introduced through human actions, most commonly through aquarium releases, hitching a ride on boats or trailers, or fishermen moving them from water body to water body. Because they often spread rapidly in new locations, they can be very difficult to control or eradicate once they're established. Consequently, the best way to manage ANS is to prevent their introduction in the first place. So, what problems can ANS cause? Well, that's a great question. ANS can contribute to a variety of problems. These may include predation, whereby they prey on native animals and plants, causing declines in the population of those critters. ANS may contribute to new disease being introduced into an area, which may again negatively impact native populations. Competition certainly is a huge impact of ANS, as these introduced critters compete with native plants and animals for limited space and limited resources. Oftentimes, introduced species work overtime to establish themselves in their new home, allowing them to outcompete native species in the area. Hybridization is another big problem we see with ANS. Introduced species often breed and hybridize with native species, resulting in compromises to the genetic purity of some critters. We see this a lot with the various black bass species we have in freshwater, whereby spotted bass, for instance, are known to often hybridize with largemouth bass. In addition to the ecological impacts, ANS may certainly contribute to huge economic losses. Some species, like zebra mussels, can cause millions of dollars in damage each year. Consequently, ANS are no small problem, and our best chance to prevent the problems they bring is to prevent their introduction in the first place. Well, now that you know what ANS are and how they've been, and you've been familiarized with some of the problems they bring, let's take a deeper look at some of the examples of these problematic critters. So here you can see a handful of various ANS species that can be found in or near Georgia. Each of these is quite unique, yet they all have one thing in common. They are critters that cause us a lot of problems. So, how about let's go check them out individually. In Georgia, a few species have caused the problems that our first ANS critter has caused, the flathead catfish. Though native to the Coosa River in Georgia, the species has been moved around the state by fishermen hoping to establish it in other water bodies. Why are fishermen moving it? Well, because as you can see, it's a huge catfish. And this huge catfish can reach sizes exceeding 100 pounds, and they've been a large thorn in our side for quite some time. To reach these gigantic sizes, the species must eat a lot. And believe me, these fish are eating machines. In the early 1970s, it was introduced into the Ocmulgee River, which of course then allowed it to get into the Altamaha drainage, where it has since decimated redbreast and bullhead populations in those rivers. If that wasn't bad enough, it was later introduced into the Satilla River in the mid-1990s. Its introduction to the Satilla has been particularly challenging, as this river has historically been known for its premier redbreast fishery. Since being discovered in the Satilla, DNR staff have engaged in spending significant amounts of time each year to remove flatheads from the Satilla, removing over 94,000 of these beasts since 1996. These removal efforts have certainly done a lot to aid in the redbreast and other sunfish populations in the river, but they come at the cost of significant time, money, and resources to do so. Now, we can't talk about flathead catfish without really giving you a good presentation or a good picture of exactly how much of an eating machine that these animals really are. In this picture, you'll see at least 12 species that we found in the stomachs of flatheads. And crazily enough, that's not all the species they eat. With an ability to prey on so many of these species, it's easy to see how they can really hurt many native fish populations and quickly change the dynamics of the fish species in areas where they're introduced. Understand, though, the negative impacts of introducing a single A&S species like flatheads to a new area is not just specific to this fish, but similar impacts can be seen from other introduced species that are also big eaters. Speaking of eating machines, our second species certainly fits that title as well. However, unlike the flathead, lionfish are not found in the freshwaters of our state. Nope, they're instead found in our biggest water body, the marine waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Native to the South Pacific and Indian Oceans, lionfish are a popular aquarium species first introduced into the marine waters off Florida in the mid-1980s. Unfortunately, they can now be found all the way north to New York. Though they're pretty to look at, these apex predators have the appetite of their lion namesake, and they wreak havoc on many of our reef species, eating large quantities of grouper, snapper, and other oceanic fish. Their venomous spines also protect them really well, which minimizes other species from being able to prey on them and help control their population. Fortunately, they're very tasty, allowing some people to pursue targeting the fish to eat. However, their close association with the reefs prevents many fishing gear from being used to catch them, and thus the most effective method to harvest them is currently spearfishing, which unfortunately does little to control the population. As a popular aquarium species introduced in the Atlantic Ocean, lionfish are a reminder to us that even the ocean, as big as it is still vulnerable to the impacts of introduced species. Much like dynamite, don't let the small size of zebra mussels fool you on how big of an impact they can have. Native to the waters of Russia and Ukraine, these quarter-sized mollusks may be physically unimposing when you hold a single one in your hand, but they redefine the meaning of teamwork. Easily distinguishable by their zebra-like stripes, zebra mussels were first introduced into the U.S. several decades ago in the Great Lakes, and since then they've spread via boats and boat trailers to waters throughout the nation. Ecologically, the species can often outcompete our native mussels, and as a prolific plankton-eating mussel continuously filtering water, they can create lots of water issues. While the ecological impacts of the species are huge, equally gigantic is its economic impacts. In introduced areas, these small crustaceans often come together to form dense colonies, and they frequently encrust anything in sight, including water intake pipes that industrial facilities use, dock pilings, and sometimes they'll even get in boat motors and cause them to overheat. The damage they do runs in the millions of dollars each year, and thus many states, including Georgia, continue to do all we can to prevent their introduction. Though no known established populations of these horrible mussels are currently known to exist in Georgia, we've recently had some very close calls with the species. For instance, in March 2021, just a couple of months ago, the Georgia DNR, along with several other U.S. states, were made aware of a recent discovery of juvenile zebra mussels being found in various mossball products, which are popular in the aquarium trade, that were shipped to several pet stores across the nation, including Petco and PetSmart. Georgia DNR officials began actively working with pet stores to remove contaminated products off their shelves, hoping to prevent eating zebra mussels from being released into the wild. Unfortunately, though, we had a second incident even after that. In April of 2021, a boat owner preparing to launch his boat in Lake Lanier up in Middle Georgia discovered the boat had zebra mussels attached to it. Not knowing exactly what kind of critter they were, he contacted us here at the Georgia DNR, and we came out and identified them as zebra mussels. Thanks to the observant eyes, though, of that boat owner, the problem was discovered prior to the boat being put in the water. Consequently, at least for now, possible major crisis was averted. Speaking of crisis averted, Georgia DNR staff also had to recently deal with another species that could have been a disaster. In October 2019, an angler fishing a private pond near Atlanta caught what he thought was a northern snakehead, and he quickly called us here at DNR. Though the fish escaped back into the water, we went out to the pond and conducted electrofishing surveys to see if we could locate the snakehead. However, in looking for a single fish, we soon discovered there was a bunch more snakeheads in the pond, a total of 34 to be exact. In an effort to minimize the impacts of the species in the area, we removed all of the snakeheads we found, and hopefully we got all the ones in the area. Native to Russia, China, and Korea, snakeheads have been introduced as a food fish and sport fish by anglers in many states throughout the U.S. Though we're uncertain as to how the snakehead found its way into the Atlanta pond, we do know that this large apex predator, which can grow up to 33 inches long, is a tough species to deal with once it's established. These invasive critters are known to have vicious teeth that they use to prey on a variety of native species. One crazy thing about this critter is its ability to breathe out of water for several hours, and its ability to tolerate a wide range of temperatures. These abilities to adapt to multiple environmental conditions allow the species to establish itself in several different areas. It makes it really challenging and difficult to control once it's established. It is often confused with one of our native fish, the bowfin, but it's easily distinguished from the bowfin by its pointy head and long anal fin on the bottom of the fish, as you can see in the picture on the right. What you can also see is how mean looking this fish is, and those mean looks don't deceive. While animals make up a large portion of our ANS, we certainly have many plants that also make the list as well, including this nasty plant called Hydrilla. Native to India, this problematic plant can now be found throughout much of Georgia. And though it has been highly desired as an aquarium plant, its release in the wild has caused lots of problems. In introduced areas, it grows very fast and often chokes out native vegetation in the pond or lake that it's in, while also causing big problems for boaters in the area. The species is commonly moved across watersheds by boaters, and thus we encourage boaters to join us in participating in an effort called Clean, Drain, and Dry. Under this plan, boaters are encouraged to thoroughly clean their boats, trailers, and gear upon leaving the water. They are then to drain their boats thoroughly to ensure that all plant material is removed from the boat, trailer, and gear. And finally, they should dry their boat thoroughly and their trailer and gear as well with a towel or air dry for at least 5 days. Furthermore, boaters are encouraged to recheck their boat, trailer, and gear prior to launching into a different water body so as to ensure that no hitchhikers are tagging along. In recent years, another significant impact of Hydrilla has been discovered. Its ability to harbor a cyanobacteria that, when eaten by bald eagles, can be fatal to eagles. As I said, it's one of the many plant species that can really be problematic, and its popularity in the aquarium trade, unfortunately, has made it easy to find. Speaking of aquariums, we continue to get reports each year of aquarium fish being captured in private and public water bodies throughout the state. These introductions are the result of people releasing aquarium species they no longer want into neighborhood ponds and rivers. While such actions may seem like the right thing to do, You should never, ever, ever dump your aquarium critters into waters from which they did not originate. Dumping your non-native aquarium animals into outside waters results in competition of the species with native fish and plants in the area, and oftentimes the non-native critter will win that battle. Remember, prevention is key, and if you have an aquarium pet you no longer wish to keep, don't dump it outside. Instead, call the pet store where you bought the animal or plant from and see if they'll take it back from you. Or call your local DNR office and we will be more than happy to take that critter from you. Of all the species we've talked about today, perhaps none can create more problems than our final species we'll look at, the silver carp. Native to the Pacific drainages in Asia, silver carp are a popular food fish in their native lands, and they were introduced into the U.S. for that same purpose. These highly invasive species rapidly grow and can reach sizes of 3 feet long and weigh up to 60 pounds. To get that large, they continually eat tons of plankton, which interrupts the food chain and hurts native species. As much of a threat as they pose ecologically, perhaps the biggest threat they pose is as a hazard to people. Despite their large size and frequent numbers, the species can easily be startled, easily be scared, and they particularly are scared when they're around boats and boat motors. Crazily enough, when the species gets scared, it has a natural tendency to begin jumping, having the ability to jump upwards of 10 feet out of the water. The combination of a large fish reaching 60 pounds jumping around boats which contain people certainly poses a significant risk to boat drivers and their occupants, creating the risk of fish landing in the boat, hitting you on the head or the arm or some other part of your body. As such, fishery managers in Georgia are continually hopeful that this bad species will never make its way into our waters. So that's just a few of our ANS, and remember we have dozens more. As you've seen, each of these critters is uniquely different and each of them pose their own problems, though collectively they all create issues for our native critters. So the question really becomes, what can you do to help the fight against ANS? Well, I'm glad you asked. One of the best ways you can help is to learn and practice what we call the 5 R's. They are: refrain. Refrain from moving plants and animals from areas where they're native to areas where they're not native. This simple step can greatly reduce introductions and really help our native species. Remove. Remove any non-native species you encounter while fishing or while out on the water. If you aren't sure whether something is native or not, take a picture of it and send it to us at DNR. We will be glad to help you identify it. Remember to check your boat, trailer, and gear when you return to the boat ramp and practice clean, drain, and dry. Report. Report any non-native species you encounter to your local DNR office. We rely on your eyes outside, so you can really help us in our fight against ANS by telling us what you see. Reach. Reach out to others and educate them on how they too can help prevent ANS introductions. By teaching each other, we can make a difference together. As you think about the 5 R's and prepare to act upon those, we encourage you to look around for educational materials that we have created to assist you in your efforts. From a Don't Move Fish poster that you see on the far left, which teaches us about the negative impacts of moving fish from one water body to another, to a wanted poster that you see on the right, identifying many of the bad species we've talked about today, to a Don't Dump Your Aquarium poster that you see in the middle, that's designed to encourage aquarium owners to be smart and not release their unwanted pets. We have several tools to educate you and your friends on how you can help us in our battle to manage and prevent ANS. Ultimately, the management and prevention of ANS in Georgia is a team effort. And for us to be most effective, we need everyone to aid us in those efforts. Together, we can give our native species the help they need so that this and future generations can enjoy them. So now you know a little bit more about ANS, what exactly they are, some examples of ANS that we find in Georgia and nearby states, and how you can help us in our efforts to fight these unwanted critters. I again extend my appreciation for the opportunity to get to speak to you today, and I encourage each of you to go fish and enjoy the diverse, beautiful waters that Georgia has to offer. Remember, our native species are counting on you to help them, and I hope that you will do so. With that, I'll be glad to take questions.
Alrighty, thank you, Jim, for your presentation. We're going to go ahead and go right into the Q&A session. So I'm going to start off with, what is your favorite part of your job?
It's a great question. Can you guys see me or hear me?
Hey guys, hope you're doing well.
Oh,
My name is
bad. There you go.
There we go. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, good deal. So favorite part of my job. Well, that's a great question. There's obviously a lot of things I really enjoy. Certainly going and working outside, spending a large portion of our time outside, getting to work in the beautiful rivers and lakes and different areas we have. That's very, very enjoyable for me. Getting to work with a lot of different people, people of all ages and all different backgrounds, and all sharing the common goal of enjoying our natural resources. So certainly people are a big part of it, and really just also trying to help make a difference and trying to contribute to managing our natural resources again, so that not just this generation gets to enjoy them, but future generations as well. So I get excited getting up every morning, coming to work, knowing that today will be different than yesterday, and each day will present its own challenges, but its own rewards as well. So
For sure. What is your most memorable experience from working with an aquatic animal?
my most memorable experience. Well, I've seen a lot of really cool ones, to be honest with you. We've seen some fish here. So I've worked freshwater fisheries for the last 5 years. Before that, I worked 15 years with saltwater fisheries. So I've seen a lot of cool critters, whether they came from the ocean, some of which were very unique, very rare in some cases, some of which were very dangerous. We've actually had some fish before that were on the coast that they could certainly hurt you pretty bad, kind of like lionfish, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But then freshwater wise, seen a lot of cool critters here. The snakehead was certainly an interesting one for us, one that we didn't want to see here in Georgia, but nonetheless a very cool critter to actually see and get a chance to learn more about. So don't really have a favorite one necessarily, but a lot of cool ones that we've certainly worked with over the years. So yeah, that's just a bunch of different species in general.
For sure. Rebecca would like to know, why is flathead catfish not invasive in native waters?
So great question. So in their native areas, just like many of your other native fish, if you will, the fish in the areas where flatheads are currently native, they've been able to adapt and they're used to, if you will, having flatheads there, because those fish have been able to be exposed to them for literally for generations, hundreds of years or more. Those fish have figured out how to cohabitate, if you will, and exist together. Anytime you take them out of that environment where fish are cohesive, if you will, and they're able to coexist, and you put them into a new area, like flatheads have been moved into, like we talked about earlier, the Ogmulgee and the Oconee now, and the Omaha, and then obviously the Satilla. In those new areas, those fish that are in those areas have not been around flatheads. They've not figured out or had a long time, if you will, to learn how to adapt to them and adjust to them, so to speak. So the impacts obviously become really, really huge when you take them from those areas where they're native and put them into a new area. So in the Gulf drainages where flatheads are currently native, red breast populations, bluegill, all these other panfish populations, they still exist because they figured out over a long, long time how to coexist. They just haven't been able to do that thus far in these areas where these flatheads have now been introduced on the Atlantic side.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for answering that one. Apologize if I'm messing up these names, but Janice and Joel would like to know what your favorite fish is.
My favorite fish, great question. At least certainly one of my favorites is a saltwater fish actually called a triple tail. It's a very unique fish. In terms of eating, I love to eat it and love to catch it. So from fishing perspective, that's one I really enjoy. From a life history perspective, probably one of my favorites, crazily enough, is the American eel. American eels are a catadromous species that a lot of people don't necessarily know much about. Most people think they're just a slimy old nasty fish, but they're actually really cool. They're one that actually all the American eels in the entire United States, whether they're in Maine or whether they're in Florida or anywhere in between, each of those fish actually, when they get ready to spawn, the males and females will migrate together or swim together, if you will, out to an area of the Atlantic Ocean called the Sargasso Sea, and they'll mate. And then, unfortunately, the males and females die after they mate, but their offspring will then return to the waters all the way from Florida to Maine, and they'll begin their life as baby eels and grow up. And essentially, males will hang closer to the coast, females will migrate on up into freshwater, into your freshwater lakes and rivers, and they'll grow up, and then they'll repeat that cycle. So a really cool species to me that not a lot of people necessarily know a lot about, but their life history is really fascinating to me. So that's a couple of mine that I'd say are my favorites, I guess.
Kind of piggybacking on that question, Ollie and Olivia would like to know what your favorite whale is.
My favorite whale, probably the northern right whale, simply because I was able to do work on northern right whales when I first started with the Department of Natural Resources. One of my first jobs was actually doing flights over the Atlantic Ocean here off of the Georgia coast to count and take pictures of northern right whales during calving season. So when they'd come down, when the mama right whales would come down to have their calves, they would, which is typically between November and March, they'd come down and do that offshore, and so we'd fly out in planes and take pictures of them, and you can actually identify. A cool little tidbit is you can identify each individual northern right whale based on the callosity pattern on top of their head. So we can actually take pictures of that pattern on top of the whale's head, because they would breach, come out of the water, so we could take a good picture of it from the air. And that helps us to be able to identify each individual whale so that we could, again, continue to monitor that whale over time, make sure that it was still around, and see how many calves it had with it this year versus next year versus the previous year. So a cool whale species. Just like all of them, they're all really cool to me, but that's one I probably studied the most, and so it's probably my favorite.
Sort of related to your job with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, what do you do with ANS that you remove or are brought to you?
So great question. It depends. Sometimes, like for the flatheads, for instance, so the flathead removal program that we do, we're removing thousands of those fish each year, and so many of those fish, we're harvesting those, so we're euthanizing them, but we're donating many of those carcasses to the local alligator park that we have here in town, and they actually feed many of those fish to the alligators, so the alligators have a good meal there. Some of the other individual fish that we may get, many of which we'll try to find homes if we can, in terms of aquarium owners or other folks that may have pets, if they're not a species that's really a threat to us, so to speak. If it's an aquarium fish, if you will, that someone caught in their pond or they have as a pet and they don't want it anymore and they bring it to us, we usually try to find again, another person to adopt it, if you will, assuming that, again, it's not a harmful species or one that we got to worry about hurting our native species in particular should it get out. And then again, sometimes some species we simply have to euthanize, unfortunately, because of the threat that they pose to, again, our native animals. We try to minimize that, but sometimes that's kind of our only recourse. There have been times we've actually donated animals to different aquariums or zoos or places like that for them to continue to be used and enjoyed in those capacities. So we've got a variety of ways that we can certainly get rid of those animals if folks donate them to us or bring them to us. But the most important thing is that folks continue to do that, because, again, our biggest concern is to get those animals out of our native waters and out of our native systems if they don't belong there.
Okay, this is the last question that we have time for. They would like to know, why do eels look like snakes?
Hey, great question. So that's why do they look like snakes? Wow, well, they that based on their life history, based on how they the niche they feel, that's apparently the fusiform body that works best for them. They're a bottom feeder, that one that enjoys hanging out in cavities and hanging out in tight small areas. And so to get in those areas where they like to hang out in the habitat they like to be in, it requires a very, very slender, very streamlined body, if you will. So if they were big and round and large, they wouldn't be able to fit in a lot of the habitats that they enjoy and that they like to live in. So that would be my best guess.
Alrighty, well, thank you again, Jim, for your presentation and for sticking around to answer everyone's questions. If anyone is interested in learning more about the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, be sure to check out their website, including their page on Jim's area of expertise, the aquatic nuisance species. If you're interested in taking a look at Georgia's natural resources up close and personal, don't forget that you can check out a Georgia State Parks and Historic Site Park Pass from GCPL. So thank you.
Thank you guys for having me, and again, appreciate the opportunity. Hope you guys get to go fishing soon.
Thanks, Jim. Okay. Next up is our video for this hour. The Georgia Sea Turtle Scoot School would like to share some tips about how to stay healthy. Please bear with us while we wait for any ads.
Here at the Georgia Sea Turtle Center, we want to help you stay healthy and happy. It's important to remember, just by following a few simple guidelines, each and every one of us can be a hero. In this video, our patients will teach you how to keep calm and swim on. First off, keep your hands away from your face. Don't worry, this photo was taken before cold and flu season, and our good friend Minkus, the diamondback terrapin, has learned her lesson. In fact, Minkus is a good role model for keeping her hands clean too. Follow her example and wash your hands often, especially before you eat. Be sure to scrub with soap and water for a full 20 seconds. If you find it hard to keep track of time while washing your hands, you can sing the happy birthday song twice to Minkus. She thinks every day is her birthday and loves to be the center of attention. In addition to washing your hands, thoroughly clean frequently used surfaces. Next up, use space to your advantage. Even while enjoying a nice walk together, garlic and Vidalia are staying at least 6 feet apart to prevent catching each other's germs. If you do happen to get sick, make sure you stay home so as not to pass it on to other people. Teleworking is a great way to minimize the number of people you are around if you aren't feeling well. Minkus has adopted this option and is working hard to prepare for our upcoming diamondback terrapin nesting season on Jekyll Island this summer. However, we know that not feeling well and staying home can sometimes be lonely. If you can't hang 10 with your friends in person, then talk to your loved ones over the phone or on a video chat. We hope these guidelines help you stay healthy and happy. The Georgia Sea Turtle Center is always posting fun and educational content on our social media, so be sure to stay connected with us.
Okay, hopefully you all enjoyed watching the sea turtles as much as I did and have gotten a nice refresher on some tips for staying healthy. Next is our activity for this hour, a penguin bookmark. If you don't have an activity bag, that's okay. We're dropping the link for the crafts in the chat.
To make this charming penguin origami bookmark, you will need the following. You will need a pair of scissors, a black pen or Sharpie, a square of paper, paper with eyes and a belly drawn on it. Yellow piece of paper with a beak and feet drawn on it, and some glue. I'm using Pritt Stick, but you can use white Elmer's glue, whatever you have on hand. Now here I'm measuring the piece of paper. I'm using black, and mine is about 5 1/4 square, but you can use something bigger or smaller than that. Now I'm folding the square into a triangle, and make sure that you make the fold nice and crisp. Now you're going to take the points of the triangle and fold them up to the middle point. And again, make sure you've got a nice crisp corner or crisp fold. Turning the other corner up to the point. And now you've got a square shape again. Now open up your triangle and take the tip and just fold one piece down so that it meets the fold that you've made. Here's the fun part. Raise up the left-hand triangle and tuck it into the pouch that you've made, or the pocket, and fold it down. Take the other side, fold it up, and tuck it into the pocket, like so. And that's the main part of your bookmark. So let's decorate our penguin. We're going to cut out the white belly of the penguin and the eyes from the white piece of paper. Now, when you've cut out your eyes and belly of the penguin, you're going to glue them and stick them on to the main body of the penguin bookmark. Notice I insert the belly of the penguin underneath or into the pocket. Just left a little flap on either side so that we'll be able to insert the feet when we cut them out. So cut out the beak and the feet from the yellow piece of paper. A little bit tricky around the toes. There. Now I'm just going to glue the very ends of the feet, where the ankle will be, if you will, and tuck that underneath the white belly of the penguin, in between the white paper and the black, and press it down. Put a little bit of glue at the top, and you're going to insert that yellow piece of paper into the pocket just underneath the eyes, press it down, and you have his beak. Now, almost finished. We just have to colour in his eyes. I'm using a Sharpie here to finish off his eyeballs. There, all done. Your origami penguin bookmark is ready to be used to put your place in the book that you're reading.
Penguin bookmarks are a lot of fun to make. If you would like to share your bookmark with us, please stop by the Decula branch this month so we can showcase your talent. If you can't stop by, just snap a picture and email it to us at daclib@gwinnetpl.org with WOD as the subject line. Please include the first name of the artist so we can give proper credit. And if you would like to learn more about penguins, have a look at these books from our catalog in the GCPL resources. Please enjoy this live feed of penguins from the Georgia Aquarium.
Welcome back to those of you rejoining Decula Library's World Ocean Day program, and a new hello for those of you who are just now joining us. I'm Sarah, and we have a lot of interesting speakers and cool activities lined up for the rest of the day. First, we've got some general information to share. If you missed any of this morning's sessions, we are recording everything, so you'll be able to access those presentations on GCPL's YouTube channel at a later date. We are so glad you could join us today, but in order to make sure everyone can enjoy our speakers and activities, please remember to keep your mics muted and your cameras off throughout the presentations. If you haven't yet, don't forget to sign up for Gwinnett County Public Library's Summer Reading Challenge on Beanstack. To do so, visit our website at gwinnetpl.org and follow the links. The challenge is a mix of logging either the number of books read if you are 5 and younger, or the number of minutes read if you're 6 and older, plus completing different activities to earn badges. If you're 17 and younger, you can win up to 4 books depending on how much you read and have the opportunity to be entered into drawings for larger prizes. If you're 18 and older, you can win up to 4 bookmarks and be entered into drawings for larger prizes too. After attending all or part of today's World Ocean Day program, you can log on to Beanstack to answer a couple of questions and earn a Beanstack badge for World Ocean Day. And speaking of prizes, after watching our presentation today, we also have a survey for you to fill out and enter for a chance to win a door prize. Today's program runs from 10 in the morning till 4, with a different speaker and activity each hour. We'd love for you to stick with us throughout the rest of the day, but if you want to come in and out, the Zoom link we've provided will let you return at any time. Here's a look at today's lineup. We had Marion Baker from Go Fish Museum at 10 and Jim Page with the Department of Natural Resources at 11. But as I stated before, we are recording this program. So if you're interested in going back and watching those presentations later, you can. As for the rest of the day, we have Peggy Whitlow with the organisation Charm coming up next, Dr. Alber from the University of Georgia at 2, and Hannah Bonvechio, the founder of Trash for Turtles, at 3. Each hour will feature a speaker, a Q&A session, a different video about our world's oceans, and an activity. Supplies for each activity are in the take and make bags we distributed in the weeks leading up to today. But if you don't have any of the materials, there are things you should be able to find at home. Now, for the Q&A session, please feel free to put your questions into the chat throughout our speaker's presentation. We'll be monitoring the chat box throughout and can ask those for you during the Q&A. You can find the chat box at the bottom of your computer screen. If you hover your mouse or tap your screen if you have a touch screen, the Zoom options will appear. If you click or tap where it says chat, the chat box will appear for you to ask your questions. Now, before I introduce our first speaker this afternoon, you may be wondering, what exactly is World Ocean Day? Well, in 1992, Canada had the idea to celebrate and raise awareness for the world's oceans at the Earth Summit held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It wasn't until 2002 that an organisation called the Ocean Project began really promoting and coordinating this celebration as we know it. Even so, it took until 2008 for the United Nations to officially recognise today, June the 8th, as World Oceans Day. The World Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council is now in charge of this event. And since then, there have been thousands of events in hundreds of countries, all with a single mission: unite the world to celebrate the ocean and take action regarding the urgent need for conservation and restoration. So, with that in mind, let's move on to our next speaker, Peggy Whitlow from CHARM.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Peggy. Welcome to World Ocean Day at the Tequila branch.
Thanks for having me. How exciting to be celebrating my favorite thing, the ocean.
Peggy Whitlow Ratcliffe drew the inspiration for founding Live Thrive Atlanta from her experience as a caregiver throughout her mother's long-term illness. During that period, she created a website, Living Green Pages, as a local resource to improve personal and environmental health. To promote the website, she organised several recycling collections for non-curbside items and found that many Atlanta residents were pursuing opportunities to preserve their health and community environment. The success of the recycled collections led her to organise the first household hazardous waste collection for the city of Atlanta in September 2010. Now, in December 2010, Live Thrive Atlanta expanded from a blog to a non-profit organisation to more actively engage resources and provide events and education promoting a healthy environment. Since Live Thrive Atlanta opened CHARM in 2015, they have diverted over 100 million tonnes of harmful waste from our water system and landfills. Peggy was born and raised in Atlanta and received her bachelor's degree in education at Georgia State University.
Hi, we're the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials, but you can just call us CHARM. We think our name says it all, but people still have lots of questions about what we do. In a nutshell, we're a convenient in-town drop-off facility to help you recycle all the things you know you shouldn't just throw away, but you don't quite know how to deal with or where to take them. CHARM is a program of Live Thrive Atlanta, a 501c3 nonprofit. We're independent and not a government entity. Our operations rely exclusively on sponsorships, grants, and community support. Translation: generous donations from people just like you. Thanks! We've been working since 2010 to create a community that cares about a healthy and sustainable environment. Our primary purpose is to keep hazardous materials out of our air, water, and soil. The good news is we handle pretty much everything, from the recycling basics like paper, plastic, aluminum, glass, etc., to those trickier items that cause a lot of folks to just throw up their hands and sneak it into the trash. Not you, of course. You know, things like electronics, paint, hazardous household chemicals, light bulbs, toilets, mattresses, propane tanks, even large appliances. But don't worry. If it's not on our list, we'll do our best to help you find a resource to properly dispose of your item. Now that you know some of the many things we handle, why don't we break down the process for our newbies and first-timers? Our typical CHARM visitor spends about 10 to 15 minutes here, dropping off their pre-sorted recyclables, learning more about how their choices impact their community, and easing the burden on our precious natural resources in the process. Not too shabby. And all that before brunch on a Saturday. Kind of a big deal, I know. 96% of all items brought to CHARM will be recycled, repurposed, or re-engineered. Items brought to us for reuse will be distributed to local nonprofits working with children, disabled veterans, or other groups in need. We also regularly host field trips and other fun and educational events, hopefully encouraging our future generations to make recycling a natural part of their everyday lives. Pretty great, right? So how do we do it? With a lot of help from our amazing donors, friends, and people like you, of course. Why do we do it? That's the easy part. I think our CHARM volunteers, board members, and clients say it best.
I recycle at Charm because it's easy, it's convenient, it's close, and it's just honestly a warm welcome for recycling.
It's really easy. I kind of drove in and was a little intimidated at first just with all the cars and everyone looking like they already knew what they were doing, but I figured it out pretty quickly.
Because I want people to start thinking about where their material will end up.
Because I'm proud to work for a nonprofit that is protecting the health and sustainability of our community.
It makes a difference
in the Atlantic community and the world.
We couldn't have said it better ourselves. As you can see, it takes a lot of amazing people and a lot of hard work to make recycling easy and accessible for our community. But we think it's worth it. Thanks for watching, and we can't wait to see you on your next visit to Charm.
Okay, I hope the video helped explain what Charm does, the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials. We were established in 2015, as Sarah has already told you, and really we were initially, our mission is to keep the materials that you have in your home, even though they're called hazardous waste, to keep those out of, number one, our water system, which we're here to talk about today, as well as the landfills. Materials that we take, I just was going to kind of scan through these things. The first thing we do is really encourage people to reduce what they're purchasing, or at the point of purchase, what are you going to do when you're done with this? What are you going to do with the packaging that it was packaged in? All of those things, we need to teach people to do that from the get-go, from point of purchase. So the first thing is to understand that and to really reduce what we purchase. The next thing that we really try to promote is reuse. For things specific, like we take musical instruments here. That was something I never dreamed there were so many, and so many people had them to get rid of. When I started doing these collections, people would bring them in for electronics or actually to throw into the metal bin to be recycled. And it was like, no, there's probably people out there that could actually use these. So we partnered with another nonprofit called the Gifted Music Foundation that actually refurbishes these instruments and gives them to kids that wouldn't normally have access to a musical instrument. So there's so many things in your home that you may want to get rid of that you need the proper place to be able to take it for it to either be reused or recycled properly. The center, like I said, was set up basically for all those hard to recycle materials, meaning the things that are too harmful or too bulky to place curbside. That was our mission. But within this time, we have found so many things. People are so wonderful in bringing them in, asking, what can we do with this? That we have reached out to many partners within the metro Atlanta area to help support their missions. Another one besides the musical instruments is bicycles. You outgrow your bike, your kid outgrows their bike, they go away to college, you have bikes in the garage that you need to get rid of to share. Yes, absolutely. First thing is you can take them to a place like Goodwill, but if you bring them to Charm, they all go to be refurbished by 2 different bicycle companies. And once they're refurbished, they're given to kids that don't have bikes. Clothing, household goods, all of those things we definitely take here at Charm. We work with another organization by the name of American Thrift Store. And the reason we chose them, they're very similar to a Goodwill, Salvation Army. They have a thrift store. All of their proceeds go to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. So we're helping out. We're doing 2 things. We're taking things from you to be reused. We're also supporting Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. The other good news with them is they take all textiles, meaning if you have sheets, towels, clothes that have stains on them or ripped that really no one else wants to wear or wants from a thrift store, those things go in to be made into dog beds, insulation, and rags. So really when you go around your house, there's probably a reuse opportunity or recycling into something else in your home. So almost like we said in the video, 96% of the things that are brought into Charm actually are reused, recycled, or when we say re-engineered, it's taking things from its original state and making it into something new. For instance, plastic film. All that plastic film that you have, things like your grocery bags, wrap that's around toilet paper and paper towels, bubble wrap from all of those wonderful things you've ordered from Amazon. All of those things those can be recycled. We work with a company by the name here in Atlanta, Nexus Fuel. They do two things with them. They either make it into a biofuel, which can be used by big vehicles, or it's something that can be made into a plastic wax and made into decking for your homes or outdoor furniture. So things that you don't think that there's no way that could be recycled. Check our website, look to see what could actually be recycled. I know it's very confusing when it comes to what can I put in my curbside bin? I think we all have that question. What exactly can we put in our curbside bin? There are 5 things, we call them the Fab 5, that regardless, no matter where you live, if you live in an apartment complex or a condominium complex that has single stream recycling dumpster, or you have a recycling bin at home, the 5 things are mixed paper, which is all of your paper. It can be junk mail. It can be receipts from the store that you went today. It can be magazines. All of those things are considered mixed paper. Those can go in your curbside or a single stream recycling bin. Aluminum. So that's aluminum soda cans, aluminum food cans. Aluminum in your house, scrap aluminum can be things like window screens, gutters on your home. Those really don't fit in your curbside bin. But when it comes to the cans or small things, the aluminum absolutely can go into your bin. Metal. Metal and aluminum are 2 different things. The way to tell the difference is a magnet will connect with metal, but not the aluminum. Example of metal in your home are soup cans. All vegetables are canned in metal cans. Keys, old keys, nails, so many things in your home are metal, all the way to your stove and your refrigerator and your washer and dryer. Those kind of things need to come to CHARM, but the smaller things can go curbside. Also cardboard. So if you've done a lot of ordering when you were at home during COVID and you did all of the online ordering and you received it in a box, a corrugated cardboard box, that can absolutely go into your curbside bin. You don't necessarily have to take the tape off, but it would help tremendously if you do break it down. And the last thing is plastic number 1, which is your plastic water bottles. If you look, the way to tell what number plastic is, if you look on the bottom of the item, there will be a triangle and it has a number in it. That distinguishes the recyclability of that plastic. But if it's a plastic number 1, absolutely it can go in your curbside bin or your single stream recycling outlet that you have either at work or in your multifamily home complex. So when you remember those 5 things, regardless of where you live, what county, what city you live in, if you have curbside recycling or an outlet to a single stream recycling bin, those 5 things can go in. And I think we'll probably have some questions about that later, about some other things that they say you can put in curbside. But if you stick to those 5, they will always be recycled. Here at CHARM, again, the most important thing to us is really reduce what you're purchasing, or at the point of purchase, what is it made of? What am I going to do with it when I'm done with it? Or how can I recycle it? The next thing is to reuse it. If it's a new phone, which it always amazes me when I work with kids and I say, how many of you have cell phones? And in 3rd grade, they're raising their hands and they have cell phones. I'm always surprised at that. However, it's a good thing because they're usually with that in that situation is something that an older sibling had or the parents had and they share it. So that's the good news with it. Always try to find a reuse for anything that you're done with. And then the recycling piece of it. The state of Georgia is number 2 in the nation for remanufacturing recycled material. What does that even mean? That means that the state of Georgia it's a $2.5 billion industry in our state to remanufacture recycled materials. The biggest component of that is the carpet industry. The carpet industry makes new carpet out of that plastic number 1, the water bottles, or the soda bottles, the energy drink bottles. All plastic number 1s are used to make to help make new carpet. So that's amazing that we can support the carpet industry by recycling these plastic bottles. 33% of all plastic bottles in the United States come to Georgia to support the carpet industry. So that's pretty impressive, isn't it? We also have another large manufacturer here in Georgia. It's glass. Strategic Materials is a national company located here in Georgia that needs glass. It is 100% recyclable material. It's made back into pellets and it goes back to be made into new bottles or new jars. Two manufacturers here. One is Strategic Materials. They actually amber glass, which is beer bottles. When you think of all of the new microbreweries we have here in the state of Georgia, as well as Anheuser-Busch, they use a lot of amber glass to make new bottles for beer. The other big glass industry here in Georgia is Dow. And Dow makes the clear bottles or the clear jars that all your condiments are in. Pickles, I'm trying to think of all the different things. Pickles, mustard, mayonnaise, all of those kind of things are in glass jars, and those are also made here in Georgia. So recycling all these materials absolutely helps our environment. It keeps all this material out of our water system, number one. And in the water system, how does it get to the water system? Well, we throw it down, we litter. That's one way that it happens, that it gets into the water system. Also, when you put these things in a landfill, Georgia has more landfills than any other state of the Mississippi. We have 159 active landfills. That is the same number of counties we have in Georgia, but that's not, each county doesn't have one. DeKalb County, as a matter of fact, has 3. Fulton County, where the city of Atlanta is based in, has none. But the 3 in DeKalb County take things like your household trash, construction debris, yard debris, those kind of things, and industrial waste. But my point is, when you dump things into that landfill, what happens to all those things in the landfill? Eventually, they do break down. However, they do produce methane gases. And those methane gases, when you start thinking about what all do we put in the trash, a dirty diaper, plastic that doesn't have a recycle symbol on it, food waste, medications, all of those things. So when you mix it, when the heat happens and all that mixes together, it's not a very good combination. So all those methane gases not only escape into the air, they also leach into our soil and eventually into a water system. So how do we keep the oceans clean? We need to recycle. One, we don't need to litter. Like when you're in a park, you need to make sure when you have a picnic that you take your waste with you and make sure that it goes into a recycle bin or to a proper bin instead of just dropping your waste down. I think that what we don't realize is that absolutely the most important thing is to protect our environment, our oceans, our air, and our land, because that's what keeps us alive, right? It's our water supply. It's how we get our food from the land, and the air is what we breathe. So recycling is absolutely crucial for those things. But also in the state of Georgia, those 120 manufacturers I mentioned, their survival comes from us recycling these materials. Novellus is another huge manufacturer here in the state of Georgia. Novellus is the largest aluminum can recycler in the world, and their main headquarters is here in Georgia. They were very smart to move here because who is here? Coca-Cola. So when we recycle those cans, there's an immediate person that can use.
All right, thank you, Peggy. I'm afraid we lost you there. So we're going to move on. So let's move on to the question and answer session. If you have any questions, perhaps you'd like to submit them to the chat feature. And as soon as Peggy gets back, we will certainly let her know about those questions that you have.
I am back. I'm really sorry. I just cut out.
Yes, you did, but that's the wonder of dealing with live programs and technology. Wonderful.
I'm so sorry. I don't know where I cut. I just suddenly noticed that you were frozen and then it went off.
Not a problem. So Peggy, First question, what is your favorite part of your job?
How excited people are to find Charm, that they have some place to bring these materials, because most people don't want to throw these things away. So they're thrilled to find a place to be able to bring them. So it's very rewarding.
Thank you. I know you've made a big impact on recycling, but what made you decide to start a recycling business in Atlanta? Were people interested from the start, or was there a slow acceptance to start?
Very good questions. What made me start this journey was my parents passed away, and they had a lot of old pesticides in their home that I knew we shouldn't just throw away, and looked for a place to dispose of it, and there was no place. So that really started my journey. And it was slow. When we opened in 2015, we had 5,000 people to attend. Last year we had over 36,000, and we're only open 3 days a week. So it's definitely exploded. People want to do the right thing. You just have to give them the opportunity.
How do you recycle batteries and bulbs?
Batteries, we recycle all batteries with the exception of alkaline batteries, which unfortunately, those are the ones that we use for everything in our life, the remote control, all of the games that our children have. Those are the ones that we buy off the shelf because they're most accessible. Unfortunately, those aren't really recyclable. My answer to that is rechargeable batteries are 100% recyclable, and that's what we need to purchase. The other batteries are just going into a lined landfill. They're not being recycled. The other type batteries, the ion batteries, the button batteries, car batteries, all of those things, we work with a company here in Georgia that actually either refurbishes them or recycles them into new batteries. The light bulbs, CFL light bulbs, the curly ones, as well as fluorescent tubes, those have very hazardous material that they have mercury powder in them. We take those, and those are actually recycled and made into the same type bulbs. Unfortunately, our halogen batteries, the LED batteries, and the incandescent bulbs, which we have so many of in our home, those aren't recyclable.
Well, that's very useful information. How was recycling founded?
That's a really good question. I think that recycling has been going on for years, hundreds of years, that people reuse things. And I think that in the past, they were a lot more clever to make things out of old materials. I know that my dad used to make things out of, like, electrical spools became tables. And I think we were a lot more crafty in previous years. Now we just kind of expect to buy these things. I think it's something that's been around for years, and we really got away from it. We're such an instant gratification society that we want what we want now. And that's how plastics came into play, is it was something that was easily disposable and cheap. So we made it to put things in, and then we just throw them away. We need to get back to, the reusing of things and making things out of reusable material. Not sure if that totally answered the question.
I think it's a very good point. I have a question. What happens to cigarette butts when they're recycled? What can you use them for?
That is very interesting. People always go cigarette butts. The bad news is, for people that smoke, is that now the filters are made of about 90% plastic microfibers. So when they inhale that, it actually goes into their lungs. The good news for the recycle piece of it is it is plastic, and it can be melted down and made into other plastics. Here on site, we actually have a bench that's made of cigarette butts. Cigarette butts are the #1 litter in the world, and the ocean and waterways are full of them. So before they get wet, if they can be picked up, we can definitely take them. And if you have access, you can also send them to TerraCycle. They take them and send them to the company that actually recycles them.
Okay. Next question. What about vegetable bags from the grocery stores?
The vegetable bags, our trick is for plastic film. If it stretches, it is plastic film. Plastic film can be taken back. It can be taken here to Charm, or it can be taken back to the grocery store. The grocery store actually has a place for your bags that you take home when you forget your reusable bag, the plastic bag. The vegetable bags can be placed in those outlets as well. Some of the plastic that grapes is a great example. If it crunches, if it's a really loud crunch, I know the grapes, cherries, sometimes even green beans come in those aren't recyclable, unfortunately. The stretchy ones, yes, the crunchy, no.
Okay, that's good to know. Can you volunteer at Charm, and how old do you have to be?
Yes, you can volunteer at Charm. Actually, we hope that starting in July, we can get back to that. We haven't done it in this past year. We have an orientation. You just need to sign up through our website. If you come with a parent, we don't really like the kids to be any younger than 10 to come with a parent. We do, welcome and host school groups if people would like to bring in their school groups, all the way up to, whatever age you can come in and volunteer. We love to have volunteers.
That's awesome. This is a follow-up question, and I think this is going to have to be our last question because of time. It's referring to the vegetable bags. What if the vegetable bags are dirty?
Do the best you can to clean them and make sure the most important thing is that they're dry. The water really, if it still has water in it, it can mold, and then that's what causes contamination. As long as it's completely dry, it should be okay.
That's good to know. Oh, it looks like we have one more question. Just one more. What are the myths and facts about items being dirty versus clean?
The fact is that if it's still a peanut butter jar, if it still has food residue on it, it contaminates everything else that's in the bin. Because if water gets in, then it spills from whatever jelly, spaghetti, whatever, it gets on everything else. So if it doesn't have to be pristine. It needs to just be rinsed out so there's not food residue that can get on the other materials. But it can contaminate the rest of your bin.
Okay. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And also thank you for answering everyone's questions.
Sure.
If you're interested in learning more about Charm and its parent organization, Live Thrive Atlanta, please consider visiting their website. And now we have another video provided to us by the Georgia Aquarium, Solutions to Pollution.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Georgia Aquarium's Deep Sea Learning here on our YouTube page. My name is Peggy, and today we are going to be talking about solutions to pollution. So things that are affecting our aquatic environments in a negative kind of way, and how you guys can reverse that and affect it in a positive way using the trash that you see in your lives every single day. We are also going to be using the Next Generation National Science Standards, MSS 3-3, to be talking about this subject. Pollution is a word that everybody's probably heard about in their everyday lives, but do you guys know what it means? Pollution is going to be something that is going to enter an environment that it's not supposed to be in and harm it in a negative way. And a lot of pollution is unfortunately human caused, which means that people like you and me, whether we know it or not, can be negatively infecting the oceans all the way far away from our homes. So today we're going to be talking about ocean pollution, specifically how humans can cause ocean pollution. So from factories near your homes or trash that you guys don't throw away responsibly, those things through runoff, which is when the rain comes comes down and pushes everything on the ground into a local river or a stream, and eventually all rivers and streams lead to the ocean. So a whole bunch of different kinds of pollutants like dirt, air pollution, or just grime in the general area can make its way into the ocean and negatively impact the animals that are there, such as sea turtles. Some sea turtles love to prey upon jellyfish, and jellyfish kind of also look like a plastic bag that's floating through the water. So if you can picture the way that a jellyfish floats kind of like this, and the way that a plastic bag would float in the water, it also looks like this. So that sea turtle might wind up getting confused and decide to prey upon the plastic bag instead, which isn't going to be good for that animal's stomach. So plastic bags being said, a lot of ocean pollution is going to come from plastics. And plastic is in pretty much everything that we use in our everyday, such as our clothes, the cups, the plates we use, forks and knives, I don't know, whatever you guys can think of, such as computers, TVs, furniture, everything that humans deal with on a daily basis has some semblance of plastic in it. Now, plastic always begins like this. Very, very small. If you shake it, it kind of sounds a little bit like a maraca, because each of these tiny couple millimeters thick beads is going to be called a nurdle. And a nurdle is pre-production plastic, which means that these pieces of plastic will eventually go into a mold, and heat melts it down, and then it forms to that shape. So you can take these and you can turn them into a plastic cup. You can stretch them out, and you can do a little bit of manufacturing magic and turn them into the clothes that you're wearing. So a lot of these nurdles are going to accidentally get broken open and end up into the ocean. Also, nurdles, or plastics, once they're thrown away irresponsibly, do begin to decay, just like everything else. So as you might see a mushroom help break down a tree branch, plastics are going to break down as well, and they might wind up looking something like this. Now, these are also nurdles that we have here, but this is just an example to show you guys just how small plastic can get inside of our ocean. So take a look at the screen that you guys are watching right now. We have something up here called the decomposition guessing game, and there's a lot of different kinds of items that you're looking at on the screen right now, such as a glass bottle, an apple core, a diaper, mittens, boxes, toilet papers, plastic water bottles, all those different kinds of things. I want you guys to pause the video here and take a couple of minutes to talk to your parents, your friends, whoever you might be with, to try to guess how long it takes these things to decompose inside the ocean once we've thrown them away. Now what I want you guys to do is look at the answers that we have put up for the decomposition guessing game on screen. So if you look at things that are organic, which means that they naturally come from the earth, such things like the apple core, that's going to take 2 months to decompose to the point where you don't recognize it as an apple core anymore, which is good. That's how long it's supposed to take things to decompose. It leaves nutrients and it benefits the environment around it. You also have wool gloves, which take 1 to 5 years, which is still a long time, but wool is a natural thread that we can pull from sheep, which is again going to be an organic compound. But take a look at some things that are not organic, specifically that plastic bottle up there. 450 years is how long it's going to take that thing to break down beside the point that we can recognize it as a plastic bottle anymore. That's longer than me or you or anybody you know is going to be alive on the planet Earth. And again, once that plastic bottle breaks down, it's going to turn into things like microplastics, very, very small, and it's going to wind up again in the table salt that you guys are seeing on your tables for dinner every single day. Things also like that foam cup are going to take 50 years, aluminum cans, 200 years, and disposable diapers also take 450 years. Long, long time. So things that are not natural, like things with plastics in them, are going to take a lot longer than organic compounds. So what can we do to help this problem? That's kind of a really big thing to get your head around. Throwing away one plastic water bottle takes 450 years to decompose. There are going to be things that you guys can do to help stop the spread of pollution, to help stop the mass production of these plastics, and I'm going to go over them with you right now. You guys might have heard about the 3 R's before: reduce, reuse, and recycle. I'm going to turn that 3 R's into 4 R's for you, and we're going to put in front of reduce, reuse, and recycle, we're going to put refuse. Refuse means I'm not going to use it at all, so stop using single plastics, don't buy plastic forks and knives, and use a reusable water bottle instead of a plastic one-time use water bottle. There's also another couple of things you guys can do. It's called composting. With compost, you take your organic trash, such as that apple core, and you put it into a heap in your backyard, and as those things begin to decay, they turn into a natural fertilizing soil for your yards, and you guys can grow a small garden, maybe vegetables, flowers, whatever have you, that's going to be good for the environment, and that's going to be an excellent way to use your trash as well. Now, currently, because of the situation that we are in, we do have an at-home learning section on the Georgia Aquarium website that's going to be underneath programs and education. There is a link on that page where you guys can submit some artwork. So what I'm going to challenge everybody at home to do is to take recyclable items from around your house, such as plastic water bottles, aluminum foil, rubber bands, anything you guys can find that you might normally recycle or throw away, and turn it into a piece of art. It can be a sculpture, it can be glued together on a piece of paper. Take a picture of that art for us and upload it to our website, and we'll see if we can see you guys on our website. If you post it on social media, make sure you guys use hashtag Georgia Aquarium so we can find it and congratulate you on your excellent jobs. So, thank you guys so much for watching Deep Sea Learning with the Georgia Aquarium. Once again, my name is Peggy, and for all of you local Georgia teachers out there, we do have Georgia Standards of Excellence that have been covered. We are going to be using a 4th grade standard about the connections of ecosystems. Thank you guys so much for coming, and we will see you again next time on Deep Sea Learning with the Georgia Aquarium. Bye!
Now, I hope that video gave a better understanding of how pollution impacts our oceans. Sea otter slide is now up, and our activity for this hour features one of our many creatures pollution can affect, sea otters.
The materials that you're going to need for this activity include a paper bag, the otter printout, colored pencils, it can be any color, but brown is the color of otters, a rubber band, scissors, glue, and newspaper. Here is a picture of all the materials that you're going to need. The first thing that you're going to want to do is color your otter. As you can see here, I'm coloring it brown. If you want to add something fun, you could even color the ears pink. Here's what the otter looks like when it is all colored. Don't worry about keeping it all on the lines because now we're going to cut it out. You can go ahead and cut out every piece that's on that page that you just colored. Now that you have everything cut out, you can move it to the side. Now you're going to take your bag and open it up. Then you're going to take your newspaper and you're going to crumple the individual pieces to put inside the bag. Once you've crumpled up your pieces, you can go ahead and put them in the bag. Just place them all the way to the bottom, and then do the same thing for the second piece. After you put the newspaper in the bag, like so, you're going to take it and you will grab your rubber band and gather up the bottom of the bag. Once you gather it all together about 3/4 of the way down, you're going to tie your rubber band around it. Here's what it should look like once you've done that. With the ponytail that you've made at the bottom of the bag, gather it up and pull it apart. At that point, you'll cut it right up the middle. This is going to be the otter's feet. Just like that. Now you're going to take the glue and start assembling your otter. First, you'll take the head, and about the bottom of the head, you're going to put a little bit of glue and stick it along the top of where your bag is. just like that. And then you're going to do the same thing for each of the limbs. Put a little bit on the arms and place it on either side of the head, right along the bag. And then you'll do the same thing for this arm, just on the other side of where the bag is. Once you get the arms to stick, then you can start on the feet. And remember that cut that we just made at the bottom of the bag? You'll put the feet on each side of that. Now it's time to glue the last piece. This is what your otter should look like. Enjoy your new otter friend.
But weren't the sea otters cute? If you'd like to share your sea otter puppet with us, please stop by the Decula Library in the month of June to show them off, or you can send us a picture at daclib@gwinnett.org, gwinnetpl.org, I beg your pardon, with the WOD as the subject line. Please include the first name of the artist so we can give proper credit. And if you'd like to learn more about sea otters, be sure to check out these books from Gwinnett County Public Library's catalogue. Our next hour will feature Dr. Meryl Alber from the University of Georgia's Marine Institute, but we're going to take a brief brain break before she joins us. Please use this time to get away from the screen and stretch your legs for a little bit, so we'll see you back here at 2. But if you're unable to join us for any other presentations today, here are a couple of reminders. Sign up for GCPL's Summer Reading Challenge. On Beanstack to log books or minutes, complete activities for badges, including a World Ocean Day badge, and win prizes. And please, fill out our brief survey about this program for your chance to win a door prize. Otherwise, we'll see you back here at 2.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to those of you who are rejoining us for our next presentation of Decula's World Ocean Day, and welcome to those of you who are just joining us. I'm Deborah, and as a reminder, we are recording all of today's program, so if there are parts you missed, you'll be able to go back to GCPL's YouTube channel and watch them later. Please remember to keep your mics muted and your cameras off so we can all enjoy listening to our speakers. So this is the chat slide. If you have any questions while our speakers are presenting, please feel free to drop those in the chat box. Dr. Alber will also be asking questions throughout her presentation, and she'll be asking for answers. So make sure you put your answers in the chat box. And to access that, you'll hover your mouse over your screen to make the Zoom options appear. You'll click on the option that says chat to open up the chat box. And also, if you haven't already, go ahead and sign up for our GCPL Summer Reading Challenge on Beanstack. To do so, you'll visit our website, which is gwinnetpl.org, and follow the links to create an account. You will log books or minutes depending upon your age bracket, plus you'll complete activities to earn badges, including a World Ocean Day badge, and you'll have the chance to win prizes. Our program runs until 4 p.m. today, but the Zoom link we provided you with will let you rejoin the broadcast as you like. Now, we have a survey for our program today, and we would really appreciate your answering our survey. If you do fill it out, you'll be entered into a drawing for some door prizes. And finally, here is a quick look at the speakers we have lined up for the rest of the day, starting with our 2 o'clock speaker, Dr. Merrill Alber. Dr. Merrill Alber is a professor in the Department of Marine Sciences at the University of Georgia and the director of the UGA Marine Institute on Sapelo Island. She leads the Georgia Coastal Ecosystems Long-Term Ecological Research Program, which studies long-term changes in salt marshes. Everyone, please welcome me in entering Dr. Merrill Alber.
Hi everyone, and thanks, Deborah, for the introduction. I am a scientist and I work in salt marshes. And one of the most favorite things I've ever done is working on a children's book, which is the book that I'm going to share some of that with you today, which talks about exploring a marsh. Before I do that, though, what I'm going to do is show you a very brief video. It's about 2 minutes long, and I will share my screen in a second, and it will give you some drone pictures and some other really beautiful pictures of a salt marsh. So we'll give you an idea so that you'll be able to see what kind of a place that the book is about and that I work in. One of the things you might do as we're looking at the video is pay attention and see how many different kinds of animals you might see, and maybe you can put those either a list or you can put those in the chat, and then maybe we can share those before I read the book. Okay, so here we go.
Along scenic coastlines in the south, waves of mesmerizing green and golden grass stretch to the horizon. This is the salt marsh. Part liquid, part solid, an ever-shifting landscape, stretching for miles before it meets the sea.
Coastal marshes are found anywhere there's soft sediment and not too much wave action. In the U.S., our big marshes are in South Carolina and Georgia, and then areas like Louisiana.
There's a huge amount of life that lives here.
Marshes function as nursery grounds for a number of commercially and recreationally important species. Everything from shrimp to crab to fish that are very popular with sportsmen.
Between the ebb and flow of the tides, the only constant is change.
Fish will move onto the marsh at high tide to feed.
And at low tide, you'll get more terrestrial organisms.
Herons and egrets and ibis, spoonbills, all of them feed in the marsh.
And organisms that are in the mud that come out, like the crabs. So it's really fluid.
Marshes filter nutrients and contaminants from the water and serve as buffers during storms.
They provide protection from wave energy, from hurricanes.
It is an absolutely beautiful landscape.
I mean, I love everything, including the smell of a healthy salt marsh on a moist morning.
They really give a sense of place to Georgians, South Carolinians, North Carolinians, and Floridians.
Okie dokie. So this is actually a TV show that's going to be on public broadcasting in about 2 weeks. So this is just a preview, and it will show research that we do on the marsh. So some of what I'll talk about today, and then some of other folks around in Florida and Georgia also doing research. So if you're interested in that, it's called Changing Seas, and it will be about salt marshes. So Deborah, do we have any answers?
Let's look. Nope, not at this time. Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, the question was for people to write down what kinds of animals they saw. And we don't have to go through all of this right now because we'll see some more in the book. But I just thought it would be a good thing to keep your eyes open for.
Gotcha.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, actually, before I do that, is this is the book. It's called And the Tide Comes In, and I think it's at the Decula Library, if I'm not mistaken. There it is. And I'm going to read just part of it, not all of it, but enough, I hope, that it'll give you the flavor of it and you'll be able to see what is going on. So this is my picture, but then this is also the very cover of the book. And we're not going to read the whole thing. So what we're going to start with, this book has two cousins. One of them lives in Georgia, right on the coast, and another one is visiting from Colorado, and she doesn't know anything about a salt marsh. So the one in Georgia is showing her cousin around. So we're going to read a little bit about their adventures. And this is the show that I just showed you. Okay. Mom says we can go to the marsh for just a little while before dinner. I give Ginger, that's her cousin, some of my marsh clothes and a pair of my old sneakers. She asks me why she has to wear such messy-looking things, and all I can say is, you'll see. We take the trail that leads through the woods behind my house, and after a while the marsh comes into view. It's summer, so the marsh grass is pretty tall. It always reminds me of an overgrown lawn of yellow-green hay. We also get a good view of the creek, and the creek is right here, if you can see my cursor, as it winds its way through the marsh and out to the main part of the river, connected like the branches of a tree. So you go all the way out here, and you can go all the way to the ocean if you kept following that. And the marsh is this part with the grass. When we reach the edge of the woods, I pause, but Ginger walks right out into the grass. Wait, I say. Too late. Ginger has already started to slide, and before I know it, she slips down into the mud right at the edge of the creek. That's why I wear old clothes, I say. Marshes are muddy. Now you tell me, Ginger laughs. She's having a little trouble getting up, so I get a piece of driftwood and use it to help pull her up. Driftwood is wood that floats in the water, and here it is. It's right here. When she's upright again, she plants the driftwood into the grass and says, "This will mark the spot where I first found out about marsh mud." I want to tell Ginger about the marsh plants and how they get bathed with salt water, but she's more interested in the animals. There are so many things to see that Ginger can't stay still. "What's this?" she asks, picking up a small white snail from the stem of a plant. "That's a periwinkle," I say. "Hold your hand still for a minute." At first, nothing happens, but then the snail comes slowly out of its shell and starts to crawl around. As we quietly watch it exploring her hand, I hear a familiar clicking sound. "Do you hear that noise?" I ask. Ginger nods as I point to all of the fiddler crabs skittering around on the edge of the creek. So skittering is when an animal moves really lightly and quickly. You might think of if you've ever picked up a log or a rock and you see a lot of the insects underneath there start to crawl really fast, that would be skittering. I scoop one up and I hold it out to show her. I'm pretty good at catching them. My dad showed me how to hold them so they can't pinch. See all these holes everywhere? Those are fiddler crab burrows. So those are holes right like that. Ginger's interested in the crab, but she doesn't want to hold it. "I'll stick with snails," she says. "There are so many things I want to show her, but it's getting late and we need to get back. Plus, it's going to take a little while to get me cleaned up," jokes Ginger, pointing to the mud all over her pants. The next morning, Ginger wants to get started as early as possible. "We're Martians," she tells our parents. Not the kind from outer space, the kind that explores marshes. We head down the trail and Ginger is way out ahead of me. When we get to the edge, she stops in surprise. "The marsh is gone," she exclaims. "We better go back and tell everyone the water's rising and there's sure to be a flood." I'm laughing so hard I can't stop. Ginger looks kind of mad, but then I tell her that the marsh is still there. It's just that it's high tide and it's underwater. The water comes up from the ocean into the river and all the way back up here to the marsh. I point to the piece of driftwood, which we can just see sticking up out of the water. So do you guys see the driftwood? It's right here. The tide will go out again in a few hours and you'll be able to see the ground again. It goes in and out twice a day. So underneath this is where the grass is. Later that afternoon, we head back down the path. Ginger sounds like an expert. Ginger sounded like an expert when we left the house, telling her parents that it's low tide now, so we'll be able to get out onto the marsh. As I come out of the woods, I freeze and motion for Ginger to be quiet. She comes up slowly beside me and gasps. There's not far from the driftwood marker, there's a raccoon digging up the mussels. It sees us though and quickly scurries away. Wow, I say. I see their footprints a lot, but I hardly ever see raccoons. It ran back to the woods, says Ginger. Yes, I say. There are lots of animals from the woods that come down at low tide to feed on the marsh, just the same as there are fish and turtles in the water that come in at high tide. So they share the marsh, she says. That's pretty cool. The next day, we decide to wait until after lunch before heading out to the marsh, since low tide isn't until 3 o'clock. When we get there, the water is just leaving. Come back, I want to show you something, I say. I carefully peel away a brown leaf from the stem of a piece of marsh grass and pick out a tiny shell. Oh my gosh, it's a little bitty snail, isn't it? Yep, and it'll grow to be one of these, I say, pointing towards an adult periwinkle. So those are these that you see up here. But how did it get in there? Is that where the mother laid its eggs? Asks Ginger. Nope, I say. The eggs go off into the water. They do? But then that means they go out with the tide. That's right. But remember, the tide comes back too. So when the babies are ready to settle down, the lucky ones get brought back to the marsh and settle on a plant. The lucky ones, she says? Well, the ones that don't make it end up as fish food. But enough of them manage to get here, as you can see, I say, pointing to the snails all around us. This place is amazing, says Ginger. If we see an animal in the marsh, it might have come from the land, like the raccoon, or it might live in the marsh as an adult, but in the water as a baby, like the snail, or it might come from the air, I say, pointing to a marsh hawk circling in the distance. On our way back through the grass, a grasshopper jumps out and hits my backpack. You see that grasshopper right here? Another land animal using the marsh, laughs Ginger. It's Ginger's last day, so we get up early to visit the marsh one more time. The tide is rising, so we can't get out to the driftwood. We walk as far as we can and then stand and watch as the water comes towards us. I'm going to miss this place, says Ginger. We never did make it to the beach, I say. I know, she smiles, but we did get good and muddy. We both laugh. Promise you'll call, she says. I will, I say. We're both quiet. The water is gray today, and it merges with the sky. After a while, we turn to leave, and the tide comes in. Okay, so that is the book. And if you guys want to read the whole story, I read probably half of it. You can see it at the library. So before I go on, because I want to play a game about the book, are there questions or things that people have in the chat?
Yeah, we do have a couple of things real quick before you continue on. Responses to what animals do you see? We have fish, raccoon, turtles, some birds, snails, reptiles, frogs, and toads, snakes, and deer. And then somebody else wrote fiddler crabs.
Wow, that is a lot, and most of those things are in the marsh. I don't know that we saw them all in that video, but that's great. And I really, it shows you how many different kinds of animals might go down into the marsh. Right. So the game that we're going to play is called High Tide, Low Tide. And before we start, we have to talk about the tide. So first of all, this is the two pictures that we saw in the book. And on the left, we see what it looks like at low tide. And on the right, we see what it looks like at high tide. And so at low tide, you can see this creek and the edge and how it goes out. On the high tide, the creek's still there, but you can't see it anymore because all of the water has flooded up here. But if you take a look at some of the trees, you'll see it's the very same place. Okay, so we're going to look at what makes the tide go high and low, and some of you may have learned about this at school. And so what we want to start with is we want to start by thinking about the Earth and the moon. Okay, so here we have the Earth and here we have the moon, and think about this gray part as the water. And the water, just because we know there's land too, but for this, let's just say there's water all around the Earth. Okay, so can anybody think, and maybe they can write this in the chat, of what might make, it looks like all these arrows are going from the Earth towards the moon. What might make the water here attracted to the moon? Can you think about that? I'll give you a little bit of a hint. If I have this pencil and I let it go, we kind of know what's going to happen, right? It falls. What makes the pencil fall? It's the same thing that's maybe making the water go to the moon.
Ah, someone has answered gravity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it looks like someone has raised her hand.
You may not be able to answer chat depending on how they're joining us.
Okay.
So
No, someone's raising their hand, or tried anyway. Maybe they went back into chat. Okay. Sorry about that. Yes, someone else answered gravity as well. Okay, so you guys are right. It is gravity. And so if you look at the top compared with the bottom, what's happened is that the gravity from the moon is pulling the water on this side towards itself, okay? And it's a little bit funny. This is a really hard thing to think about. It's pulling the Earth a little bit. Like, so if you look at here, this moves kind of a lot. And then if you look at the middle of the Earth, it moves just a little bit. And then if we see on the other side, it hardly moves at all. Okay, and the reason is because if you think about it, the gravity is going to be the strongest closest to the moon, right? So that's where it's going to pull it the most, and it's not going to pull it very far all the way on the other side. And so what happens is the water here gets pulled, the Earth gets pulled a little bit, and then this water gets left behind. And so because of that, we have these places where the water is bulging and places where there's hardly any water. And so I think I have a little, let's see what I have next. Yes. Point A is under the most influence, is pulled the farthest. Point C is pulled the least. Okay? So if we think about this, this is just a little bit abstract, but if we look at a picture of the Earth, this is flipped. We have the moon up here, but it's the same thing. There's this gravity pulling the water toward the moon on this side, pulling the Earth a little, not really pulling it at all. And both of those are what we would say high tide, because the water is very high. And then if you are, when the Earth is rotating, when you're at the place where you're either very close to the moon or all the way on the other side, it's going to be high tide. And then if you're at the place where it's not very high, it's going to be low tide. And so since the Earth, it takes 24 hours for a day, what we have is in one day, you're going to be at high tide and then low tide and then high tide and then low tide. And so it's actually happening 2 high tides, 2 low tides in most places in the world. Okay, so that was a long explanation, and if people have more questions about it, we can answer them. But now we'll get back to our game. All right. Okay, so here we are. We're looking at low tide and high tide, and the first animal we're going to think about is this fish. So now I really do want people to write things in the chat, and let's think about whether you think it would be on the marsh at high tide or at low tide.
Looks like we have 3 for high tide.
3 for high tide. That is correct. And if some of you are still typing or have just thought about it, you're all right. So it's a little confusing because the fish might still be here in the creek. even when it's low tide, as long as the fish like to swim in the water. But if you think about when it's going to be able to go out here on the actual marsh, it really needs enough water. So that's why you wouldn't see the fish up here at low tide unless it got stuck for some reason, but you would hope that it's mostly there at high tide. And so here is the same picture that we had in the book that shows all of these. These are killifish, and they're very, very common in the creeks in salt marshes. And they're only about, 2 inches long, something like that. So not that big. They're small. Maybe they get a little bit bigger than that. And one of the things that's really interesting about these killifish is that if they laid their eggs and it was just in the water, you would probably predict that it would then leave with the tide, right? Because it's floating in the water. But what killifish do is they actually put their eggs, and they're sticky, they're a little bit gelatinous, and they stick them to the leaves and stems of the plants, of the grass. And because of that, they're actually able to stay there, and then when the eggs hatch and you have baby fish, they're right there where they need to be on the marsh. So that's different. Most fish don't do that, but the killifish are very specific and live in the marsh, and that's what they do. Okay, so let's try a new animal. Our second animal is a fiddler crab. Okay, so once again, let's go in the chat and say whether you think you'd find them on the marsh at low tide or at high tide.
Okay, we've got some people answering, so we'll hold on for just a moment, see if anybody else does it. If you think you know the answer, type it in. You don't get extra points if you get it right, and you don't get points taken away if they're wrong. So let's look. Looks like we have 2 for low tide. Okay, that is a great answer. And so remember in the video, we saw it was in the book, but also in the video, we saw some of those fiddler crabs skittering around, and they do that. They are out on the marsh surface at low tide. And so let me show you a picture here. So this is a real life fiddler crab, and this is the picture from the book, and it's a little blown up, but these are these little burrows. They just look like holes, but the fiddler crabs can go into these holes. And so what they do is they go out and about and do their business and try to get food when it's low tide, and then at high tide, they go down into their burrows. And here's a picture showing a fiddler crab in its burrow, and it puts a little plug of mud at the top. So it hangs out, and the water comes up and comes back out, and so they're protected, and they're not up on the marsh at high tide. The other thing that I should tell you is you'll see some of these have these big claw, and some of them don't. And it turns out it's the males that have a big claw, and the females do not. And sometimes what the males will do is they'll go out in the marsh, and they will wave their big claw around to try to be attractive to the females. Okay, so they're at low tide. Okay, next animal. Baby shrimp. Ooh, that's a tough
one. It is a tough one.
I think that's a tough one. Baby shrimp. Not baby shark. Don't start singing that.
Not baby shark. Baby shrimp.
All right, so let's look. We've got people answering. Let's see what we've got here. All right, we have 2 for high and 1 for low.
This is a really
who says both.
Both. Oh, that's an interesting answer. So baby shrimp actually are in the water, and so they really want, kind of like the fish, they can be in the creek at low tide, but at high tide, they're not going to go out all the way onto the marsh until there's enough water. And shrimp have a very interesting life cycle, and I'm going to show you it now. So first of all, on the right, in case you've seen this or eaten this is shrimp that you might get in a restaurant. Okay, so that's a shrimp cocktail. And so that would be the adult shrimp. And so if we start here, the adult shrimp is not in the marsh. It's actually out in the ocean, and shrimpers who go out, well, that's where they will catch them. But then the adult female will lay eggs out in the water, out offshore, and then the current, the tide, will bring it all the way back into the marsh, and you get these baby shrimp that are mostly in the creek, but they do come out when they can onto the marsh at high tide, and they will feed until they get a little bit bigger, and then when they're big enough, they will swim back out and be back out in the ocean. So they're not, so even though the adults are not in the marsh, you can see that they need the marsh because that's where the babies are. That's the nursery for the young shrimp. Gotcha. Okay. All right, next one. Bird. And if anyone wants to, they can also see if they can tell us what kind of bird that is.
High tide or low tide? Type in the chat if you think the bird comes to the marsh in the high tide or the low tide. We've got people who are stumped. Looks like we've got 2 for low tide.
Mm-hmm.
2 for low tide.
Yes, this is confusing, but low tide is the answer, and I'll tell you part of why it's confusing because of the picture here. So the birds are going to want to land, and they're really only, they're not going to want to land in the water. What's confusing is that here we see a bird, and it's there at high tide, but it's really not in the, it's in the upper part, so it's not under the water. Because there are other kinds of things like ducks, right, that would always be in water, or seabirds that might be there. But for the marsh birds that we're looking at, they're really only going to feed at low tide when they can come here. And so this bird here is called a red-winged blackbird. And if you think about it, it's a black bird, and it has these beautiful red spots on its wings. It's beautiful when you see it there because you can see this very bright red spot on the wings when it's flying. So this is a red-winged blackbird that you see a lot at the marsh. They actually kind of make a little bit of noise, so you can hear them too. And then I have some pictures of other kinds of birds that you might find. So this other one that was in that other picture is a great egret. We saw a heron, a great blue heron. Excuse me. And then here's this really interesting one called a clapper rail. Sometimes it's also called a marsh hen. And it lays its eggs in the grass, but it will lay it very high up. So not, because if it goes too close to where the tide comes in, that would be bad, and that it would get flooded out. So it will nest though in the marsh. So in answer to everybody who was confused, it's confusing. So I would say they mostly use it at low tide, but there are some birds like this guy and these guys that will go up into the very upper part and can still be found at high tide.
We had 3 people who answered low tide on that one. So
yeah.
Good job,
Great.
everybody.
Okay. How about this guy?
Okay. So that's a raccoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that right?
It is. It's a raccoon. He's a little hidden by the grass.
Okay. So answer low tide or high tide in the chat. So far, we've got 1 for low tide. And another 1 for low tide. And 2 more for low tide. So
all right, the low tides are that is correct. And if you remember from the video I showed, there was a raccoon, if you saw that part. So the raccoons in particular are not going to want out and get their feet wet, but they really want to eat the mussels and the oysters and some of the other animals that are in the marsh. And so they wait until low tide and they go out. And so we saw that in the book as well. And here's just a picture. Sometimes you can go out and you really do see the footprints to show you that the raccoon has been out. So raccoons, and some of you might know this, they're generally thought of as nocturnal. So nocturnal means that they are more active at night than during the day. And so there are some different kinds of animals, like an owl, that is more active at night than during the day. And raccoons are nocturnal. However, they also have to know when it's low tide, or not know, but they want to be out on the marsh and get their food at low tide. So the raccoons that are near the marsh will go out even during the day if it's low tide. And so that's different than most other raccoons that don't live near a marsh. Most of the time, raccoons would not really be out and about during the day, but they have to do that because otherwise there may not be enough time to get enough food. If it's high tide at night, they won't be able to get their food. So they will go out whenever they can. Okay, this is the last one. So this is a blue crab. This one is a little bit tricky. I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to tell you that these legs right here are called swimmerettes.
I did not know that. Okay, so high tide or low tide, y'all? Type it in the chat. All right, so far we've got 2 for high tide and 1 for low tide.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's another high tide.
So the reason that was a hint is the swimmerettes help these crabs swim. So this is different than the fiddler crabs, which we saw before, that don't want to be there at high tide and they go in their burrows and hide. These blue crabs are more like those shrimp that go out in the ocean and then come up here and have to swim for being here at when they're underwater. And I have the life history of the blue crab. So at the top we see a male. This one was in the lab. It was number 1 for an experiment. And these are those swimming legs here. And then this is a female. She's turned over. And this orange part, it's not always found, but this is the eggs. And so when a female has a lot of eggs, that's called a sponge. And maybe you can see why it kind of looks like a sponge. And so these are the eggs that she's carrying. And then like the adult shrimp, the crab will release its eggs in the water, and that's what the little bitty eggs look like. And then it goes through a number of stages. It will molt like insects molt, okay? And so when it first comes out, it doesn't really look much like a crab, does it? And then it goes through another molt, and it looks, I call this molt Superman. I feel like it looks like it's little Superman swimming around. This is only about a ½ an inch. And then here's the next molt where it starts to look just like a small miniature of the adult. Okay, so that's the different stages. And then the same thing as the shrimp, these babies will be in the marsh, and then the adults will actually come up there as well sometimes.
Gotcha.
All right, so you guys did great. This will just sort of show you. So we put the fiddler crab and the bird and the raccoon in the marsh at low tide. We put the blue crab, the fish, and the baby shrimp in the marsh at high tide.
Gotcha.
So that's the end of my game. And I'm very happy to answer questions if we've got some.
Okay, so we do have some questions. Let me look at them real quick. All right, all right, Dr. Alber, we do have some questions for you. Thank you so much for your presentation. So the first one is, Dr. Alber, what is the favorite part of your job?
Oh, well, that is such a good question. What is the favorite part of my job? I think that might have changed as I've sort of gone through my career. I think when I was younger, my favorite part was to be able to be outside and collect data. And I still really enjoy, I don't get to be outside that much anymore in the marsh collecting my measurements, but I do really like that still. But I would say that as I've sort of gone a little bit further, I really enjoy being able to explain marshes and being able to put the information together and share it with people. I find that really rewarding and interesting.
Thank you. And we do have a comment from a person in the chat, from Catherine. She states, we went on an excursion last year in Hilton Head Island, and they catch these crabs with raw chicken.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That's what they usually use to bait the crabs. They usually will use the part of the chicken that you wouldn't eat. So they might take the neck or some part that isn't normally eaten, and then they'll save that and put those in the crab traps.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I did not know that. That's very
yes.
So what is your most memorable experience from working with an aquatic animal?
Wow, my most memorable experience. I've had quite a few different adventures, but I'm going to say one that's kind of close to what you saw in the book. And I don't know if you'll remember, but there was a part where one of the girls has a snail on her hand, and it starts to crawl around. And I remember, it turns out that the snails will always climb up. And part of why they climb up is because they want to get out of the water when the tide comes in. And why they want to get out of the water when the tide comes in is because blue crabs that like to eat them swim in at high tide. And so they want to get out of there. So they go up. And I remember having a snail in the lab, and no matter how I turned it around, it would turn and go up. So I was kind of putting it upside down, and it would turn and go up, and then I was making it do spirals. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but it was really fun.
So another question that we have is, are the marshes in your book, are they considered saltwater, freshwater, or brackish water?
That's a great question. They're considered salt marshes. So on the coast of Georgia, we have a lot of beautiful, beautiful salt marshes. That's mostly what you will see if you're driving on I-95 or 17 or those areas. But then if you go further up some of those rivers, it will change because the water isn't as salty. And so you'll switch to brackish and then fresh.
Wow. I didn't know that either. That's really cool. So what are the biggest challenges you see for keeping marshes clean?
So I think that marshes in general are pretty clean. There aren't that many things that wash up on them. And part of it is that there's not high wave energy in those areas. And they're a little bit remote. They're a little hard to get to. So people don't usually, you can't really walk out on a marsh unless you have boots or old sneakers and you're prepared. So people don't usually put trash there. I would say that more concern than trash is just making sure that the marshes that we have can keep up with sea level rise, because the sea level rises that can start to drown marshes. And we're not in any trouble right now. Georgia marshes look fine, but it is a sort of a long-term concern.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions that we have for today, Dr. Alber. And thank you so much again for your presentation and for answering everyone's questions. If you are interested in learning more about the work Dr. Alber's team is overseeing on Sapelo Island, please be sure to visit their website. So now our next video is from the Georgia Sea Turtle Center Scoot School, and it is about some of the species of Georgia sea turtles.
Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Alber. So you all please be patient. We may have some YouTube ads, as you know.
There are 5 species, or types, of sea turtles along the coast of Georgia. The Kemp's Ridley sea turtle, the hawksbill, the loggerhead, the green, and the leatherback. This program will discuss the differences between these 5, but first, let's talk about what all sea turtles have in common. Sea turtles are marine reptiles, simply meaning they are reptiles that live in the ocean. Like other reptiles, sea turtles are ectothermic, which means cold-blooded. This means that sea turtles cannot keep their bodies at the same temperature as we do. Their bodies are going to be the same temperature as their surrounding environment. Like other reptiles, sea turtles are also covered in scales, lay eggs, and breathe air with their lungs. Sea turtles do not have teeth, but they eat instead with beaks. A special feature that belongs to turtles and not other reptiles is their shell. As we'll learn, some sea turtles have a hard shell and some have a soft shell. Now, let's learn about their differences.
Hi everyone, my name is Taylor. I am an Education AmeriCorps member here at the Georgia Sea Turtle Center, and we are going to do a series on all of the sea turtles that you can find in Georgia. So throughout the entire world, there are 7 different species of sea turtle, and right here in Georgia, we can find 5 of those 7 species along our 100-mile stretch of coast. So I'm going to introduce you to 2 of those species today. We're going to start off by learning a little bit about our Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. So these guys are the smallest species of sea turtle. They will only get to about 100 pounds, maybe about 2 feet in length, give or take. This is the shell for a Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. It's got a nice circular shape here. You can see that it's this brown, sandy color, matches the environment that these guys live in, which is in the ocean, where it's all sandy and muddy, and they're looking for hard-shelled, crunchy crustaceans to eat. So Kemp's Ridleys have this nice hook-shaped beak here. They eat a lot of crustaceans, other sorts of seafood that are hard-shelled creatures, and this hooked beak is really good for prying open hard-shelled creatures like that. They've also learned to adapt to eat squid bait that is on the end of a fishing line. It's an easy thing for them to grab. So we do see a lot of sea turtles coming into our hospital, Kemp's Ridleys specifically, that have gone after squid that is on the end of a fishing line. Therefore, we find turtles that have fishing hooks lodged either in their throat or farther down into their stomach. We work really hard to get those removed and get those guys back out into the ocean. These guys nest in a process called an arribada. Arribada is a Spanish word for arrival. They come up onto the beach in the middle of the day to nest all at the same exact time. That can be very deterring for natural predators to have thousands of turtles on the beach at one time. However, humans really tend to notice when something like that is happening. This is one of the reasons that their nests have been raided and their eggs have either been eaten or sold, and why their numbers are so low today.
Kemp's Ridleys are a critically endangered sea turtle species for many reasons. However, efforts are being put forth to conserve them. The nesting females and their nests are heavily protected in both the United States and Mexico. In Georgia, you can help Kemp's Ridleys by using bait other than squid, as it has been found to attract these sea turtles. And using circle hooks instead of J hooks may also lower your chances of catching a Kemp's.
Other sea turtle species that I want to introduce you to is the hawksbill sea turtle. So here we've got a shell for a hawksbill. This beautiful shell here. You can see all of these overlapping scutes. So all of these little portions of a shell, all these individual sections here, each of those is called a scoop that makes up a turtle shell. But a hawksbill sea turtle, their scutes sort of overlap like roof shingles, which is very different from our other sea turtle species. And it's got this beautiful tortoise pattern on the back. Now, you can find this tortoise pattern on lots of things that we buy today, jewelry, glasses. My glasses even have a little bit of that tortoise shell pattern. Most of the time it's going to be plastic, but other times it is made out of hawksbill shell. If you're out of the country, you might end up coming across jewelry that has been made out of hawksbill shell. That is one of the threats to these guys, is that their shell is so beautiful it has in the past been used to make jewelry and trinkets and other sorts of pretty things because it is so beautiful. These guys have this nice long shaped beak, sort of looks like a hawk's beak. They're able to reach into crevices and other sorts of nooks and crannies in coral reef, and they're looking to grab these nice sponges that live in those crevices. They're actually made out of this glass material that can be pretty harmful for most animals. However, hawksbill sea turtles, they have adapted to be able to consume this glass-like material. They're very important for the coral reef ecosystem. They keep the sponge numbers low. Hawksbill sea turtles, they can get up to 150 pounds and maybe about 2 feet in length. They are the second smallest species of sea turtle. Well, thank you for joining us today. We will be having part 2 come out in a couple of days, and we will be talking about loggerheads and marine sea turtles. So make sure you check back in for part 2.
Okay, so thank you all. And I hope you learned a lot about the sea turtle species who we call our coastline home, and understand a bit more about why we're protecting our world's oceans and why it's so important. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and start our activity for this hour. Let's see where it is. So, sorry, technical difficulties.
Augusta University is 1 out of 10 schools in the world that offers medical illustration. So it allows me to actually be an art major and a biology minor at the same time. Having a diverse environment helps feed into my art because it helps me think about the world in a different way. It's the most diverse place.
Technology. I'm very technologically challenged. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do the Scoot School, the World Ocean Day Jellyfish activity video. We will go ahead and start that now. If you have done your craft, please remember to show it to us or send it to us by an email at daclib@gwinnettpl.org. And we will go ahead and start our video now.
Welcome to Making Your Paper Plate Jellyfish activity. Here's a picture of all the materials you would need. These are materials that you would need to make your paper plate jellyfish. Half of a paper plate, a glue stick or tape, your choice in order to color the body of your jellyfish, paint, crayons, color pencils or markers, scissors, the ice template, and 5 strips of crepe paper. Let's start with painting the body of the jellyfish. In this video, I'm using paint, but if paint is not available to you, you may use whatever you have on hand. If you have crayons or markers or color pencils, it is your choice. If you're using paint, allow your paper plate to dry completely before moving on to the next step. Let's grab the eyes template and cut out both eyes before we glue them onto the jellyfish's body. Now it's time to glue on both of our eyes in the strips of crepe paper. You glue the eyes on the front part of the jellyfish's body, and I chose to glue the crepe strips on the back of the jellyfish's body. You may use tape if you do not have a glue stick available. Now that you glued on your eyes and the strips of crepe paper, you can go back and add a facial expression. I chose to add a smile. Here is a pic of what your final craft may look like. I ended up doing this craft 3 times and it looked different each time that I did it. I hope that you enjoy your jellyfish friend. Here's a fun fact about jellyfish. Jellyfish may not have a great reputation with beachgoers, but they do incredible things for the ocean and animals that call it home. Not only are they the backbone of the marine food chain, but they also help regulate the Earth's climate by moving carbon and other nutrients from the Earth's surface to the ocean's twilight zone.
All right, paper plate jellyfish are so fun to make. Consider stopping by the Decula Library in the month of June if you would like to show us your paper plate jellyfish, or again, you can email it to us at daclib@gwinnettpl.org with WOD as the subject line. Please include the first name of the artist so we can make sure to give you proper credit. If you are interested in learning more about jellyfish, be sure to look at these books from our Gwinnett County catalog and for some more resources. So we are actually going to take our brain break now. We're going to put everyone back into the waiting room so that we can meet up with Hannah Bonvechio, a rising 9th grade student who started a project called Trash for Turtles. But before we hear from her, we're going to take this last brain break. You're going to want to hear from Hannah, so take care, and we will see you soon at 3 o'clock.
Hi everyone, it's Jamie. Welcome back to those of you who are rejoining us for the final presentation of Dacula Library's World Ocean Day, and welcome to those of you who are just joining us. As a reminder, we are recording all of today's program, so if there are parts that you've missed, you will be able to go to GCPL's YouTube channel and watch them later. Please remember to keep your mics muted and your cameras off so we can all enjoy listening to our speakers. If you have any questions for our last speaker, as you listen to her presentation, please be sure to drop those in the chat and they will be included in the Q&A. You will find the chat box at the bottom of your screen. If you hover your mouse so that the Zoom links appear, you will see one of the options is chat. Clicking on that will open up the chat box. Also, if you haven't already, please sign up for GCPL's Summer Reading Challenge on Beanstack. To do so, visit our website and follow the links to create an account. You will log books or minutes depending on your age bracket, plus complete activities to earn badges, including a World Ocean Day badge, and will have the chance to win prizes. We also have a survey about this program. We would really appreciate you answering. If you do fill it out, you'll be entered a drawing to win some door prizes. And now on to our last speaker of the day. Hannah Bonvechio is a rising 9th grade student from Pierce County, Georgia, who has a desire to protect our marine ecosystems. She will be presenting on her Trash for Turtles project, which she began in 2013 at the age of 5. This project involves organizing cleanups, fundraising for shark and sea turtle conservation along Georgia's coast, and conducting outreach events. To date, she has raised over $10,000 for her ocean conservation mission. You can learn more by visiting her Earth Inspired Kids blog at earthinspiredkids.com. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Hannah.
Hello and welcome. My name is Hannah Bonvechio, and I'm going to be talking about my Trash for Turtles project. A little bit about me. I'm 13, almost 14 years old. I'm an upcoming 9th grader at Pierce County High School in Blacksburg, Georgia. I love reading and playing soccer, and my favorite animals are sharks and sea turtles. But most importantly, I love helping the environment. A little bit about my project and some of the things I've done. So I started at 5 years old in 2013. I have done over 60 cleanups, road, river, and beach. I've created a petition and proposed it to my county commissioners. I've done a lot of education and outreach, over 35 booths and talks. Fundraisers, I've done a lot of fundraisers over the years too. I've done recycling aluminum cans, about 94,000 so far. I've done a readathon. I've done recyclable bags, note cards, and bracelets. I've sold those, and I sold recyclable water bottle and cotton t-shirts, and I've sold stainless steel straws. I also did the name game one year. Some of the groups I've helped support are the Georgia Sea Turtle Center on Jekyll Island, the Satilla River Keeper, St. Simon's Island Sea Turtle Project, Georgia DNR Sea Turtle Conservation Program, the Credit Research Project on Wausau National Wildlife Refuge, and Jacksonville University's Georgia Shark Study. I have raised over $10,500 so far. So how it all started, it started by a sea turtle named Mahi. Mahi was a green sea turtle. Mahi lived in the Georgia Sea Turtle Center. And when I saw Mahi, I learned quickly that Mahi was missing a flipper. Mahi was missing a flipper because she was entangled in fishing line, and thankfully the Georgia Sea Turtle Center helped her recover, and she was eventually released. But it hurt me so bad to see that our trash was hurting innocent creatures that had really nothing to do with it. So I began my project. I started by doing aluminum cans, recycling aluminum cans. Here, my sister is helping me, along with me as a very young age, picking up cans along the side of the road to recycle for money to support the Georgia Sea Turtle Center. There's a picture of me, my mom, and my sister, and someone who helped us get more cans for our project. But I'm not here for me, I'm here for you. So here's how you can help. Participate in local cleanups, educate others, do the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle, and support projects like Trash for Turtles. Also, don't forget to take silly photos if you do cleanups, because that is one of the best parts. Other ways you can help is use your interests and hobbies and talents to make the world a better place. Here's some of the examples that what I've done. I've done note cards because I used to like coloring and drawing a whole lot, and I used that talent and that hobby that I like to do to raise money for sea turtles. I also enjoy speaking a lot, public speaking, and so I spoke to the Georgia Board of Natural Resources one year in 2018. Further ideas to help you pursue maybe some projects in your local hometown is community service. So that's a really big one in my project in particular because I do a lot of trash cleanups. This is an example of one of my trash cleanups. This was a part of my Trashathon project, and the student ambassadors and some locals came and helped us out and cleaned all this disgusting trash out of our environment, and so that was fantastic. Another idea is to also do river cleanups. This is a Satilla River cleanup that I did one year, and it helped get trash directly out of the environment. Here's my Trashathon that I was talking about. I've done 10 miles. It was 10 miles, and I picked up 4,785 pounds. And so this was when I was 9, so it's been a little while. So what I did was a lot of people came and helped me clean up different areas. A lot of different people sponsored our picking up of all of the trash. And so that's just another way to like make a difference in your community if you like enjoy doing that and enjoy getting out and getting dirty for sure. Another way to use your interests and talents to make the world a better place is through science and technology. If you're really good at science and technology, I recommend using that. And one example of me doing that is there was a creek called Mill Creek, and this is the creek on the 2 side pictures, and it was really contaminated and very dirty. And so I was wondering whether that trash was getting into the local fish that swam in this area. And so I did a little project about it, and it was very interesting for me because I was able to get out there and do science, but I was also able to do a documentary about it and to try to share the word about some of the stuff I found. So that's another way. This is also going directly out and doing the research itself. So as you become older and as I become older, I found that more research opportunities are going to open up. And this is an example where Mr. Mark Dodd from 2016, not this year because of Corona and last year, but I've done it for a while. And I went out there and helped with the sea turtle nesting surveys directly to help the conservation of sea turtles. And so that's just another way to use my love of sea turtles to help the environment. Another example is if you love local advocacy. I enjoy speaking to people, and so after I did my Trashathon in that year, 2017, I presented some of my findings to the board to try to make change in my area. And this is another way you guys can write letters to your local people who are making changes in your community and try to get these problems of litter and trash solved, because there's a huge problem in my area that I learned very quickly. Another way is to use art and design. Over the years, I've done a lot of fundraising, and fundraising has involved a lot of trying to design products that people will buy to help support my project. And here are a bunch of different examples. So I talked about the note cards earlier, but also I've done t-shirts, I've done bracelets, I've done bags, and it's been really great to use my love of trying to use my love of art and to make the world a better place. And so that's just another example of doing that. Another example is writing. I really love to write. I love writing stories, novels, all of that fun junk. And so one example was I wrote a book, Threatened Animals from A to Z, to try to inspire kids, try to tell kids about some of the problems that threaten animals. And so that was an example of writing. But then I've also have a blog, Earth Inspired Kids. Go check it out. Super cool. And it's on there I post monthly blogs about some of the things I'm doing to hopefully inspire future projects, kind of like what I'm doing now. I also meet with people a lot, and it's very important when you're doing a project is to share your message with people. And so this year has been a lot more difficult because of Corona, but I've also done a few Zoom conferences, a few talks with people, and it's been really fun using technology again, to talk to people and to share my word about my project to other people. This is just an overview of all the other things I've done. I did 100 miles, and I also did talk to the DNR board and a couple other places. And I started when I was very young, because there's named Lily, my sister, when we were little. I've also love reading, and one of the reading things I've done is I've done a readathon. And so basically what I did was I read pages in a book, and those were sponsored by different people in my community. And that money was raised to help the Corona Research Project, which was this past year's little project. And so through that, I was able to use my love of reading, because I absolutely love reading, to try and tell people about different things about sea turtles past, from like the Windward Road, where research was just starting about them, and then also little tiny informational books for little kids who are just learning about some of the problems that sea turtles face. So here's just a few steps so you can look around. So what do you want to change? Me, I saw trash everywhere in my community, and so I was like, I want to do something about it. I want to make a project. And it was when I was little, so this was maybe I was a little naive, but I quickly learned that I need to do something about this, and so I did. And so look inside. What are your likes and interests? So those were a couple of different examples of how you can use technology, art, anything you like. And so I'd use that to make a change. And so you can identify an organization that matches your vision for a change. That is very important. Connections. That is super important when you're starting a project. And so that's what I learned quickly. When you reach out to people, people are more likely to help you. They really are. People really want to make a change. And so when they see that you're doing good things, it's really good for you to talk to people, and you can help get grants, sponsorships, all of that junk. And so next, you have to make a plan. So make a plan, say what you're going to do, say your fundraising, say whatever you're going to do, list it out, get all of the details about it. That's super important. Planning, a lot of planning. And then also you get into action and make it happen. So get out there, go do it. Go pick up a trash cleanup. Go do a trash cleanup. Go pick up trash. Go make a change. Thank you for having me here today. Hopefully I inspired some future projects, or maybe even just going out there and doing a cleanup, something to help your environment in your area around you. I want to say thank you to the Corona Research Project, which all my money for the past 2 or 3 years, has gone to the Corona Research Project, and I really appreciate all of the work they do to help sea turtles. And I also want to say thank you for listening to me talk about my project. And hopefully you guys learned a lot, and I really enjoyed talking to you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hannah, for your presentation. We're going to go ahead and get started with the Q&A. So what is your favorite part of your project?
Well, there's a lot that I enjoy about my project. It's really cool to be able to go different places and just meet different people. I think my favorite part personally is meeting with the kids, because the kids are so, it's so interesting seeing them at a young age where I once was, and being able to influence them maybe for the first time to maybe work with sea turtles or make a change in their area. It's really inspiring to both me and I assume them as well.
For sure. Tony wants to know, what do you plan to do following high school and maybe pursue as a career?
See, I'm a very well-rounded person, so there's a lot of different things that I could pursue as a career possibly. I've wanted to work with environment science, but also just science in general, I really want to do. But it's kind of been broad so far, so maybe I'll kind of figure that out as I go into the future.
For sure. I know that's a little bit of the ways off, so.
Yeah.
So what is your most memorable experience from working with an aquatic animal?
Most memorable experience. Well, I think, I don't work with a whole lot of animals. Like a lot of the stuff I do is fundraising, so it's not like direct hands-on stuff, but Mahi was really my inspiration for my whole project. So I would say Mahi for sure, seeing him or her be released into the wild after being, even with her flipper problem, but that was from mine.
Good. So Marion would like to know, what is the best item that you have found while collecting trash?
The best item? We find a lot of different things. We find, because we're in a rural area, a lot of our back roads are there's a lot of big dumping things. So we find like couches, mattresses, stuff like that. And it's really, but my probably most, the best item in my opinion is almost every time we go out, which is kind of sad, we find a lot of tires. But I love rolling tires. Like, it's just the thing I like to do. So every time I find a tire, I get really excited about it. So I guess that would be my best item.
Yes, for sure. Why did you choose sea turtles?
Well, I think at a young age I saw them and they're just cute. I mean, I love them. They're adorable. They're awesome. And I think just at that age, I just realized that like when I saw Mahi and all that stuff coming together, that just kind of really latched on to me. And so I think I've always been fond of sea turtles, but it's just kind of carried over to my project as well.
For sure. One of the other questions, I know that you started at a really young age. What age do you suggest children start helping with trash in their community?
I think you can start at really any age. I started at 5, so I don't know. I can't really say, but I think the best thing is just if you're starting out young, make sure you have an adult with you. That's very important. But I don't know. Any age counts. I mean, it's not hard to just go outside and pick up trash. It doesn't have to be some big cleanup or whatever. It's always great to do whatever you can whenever.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Kind of going hand in hand with that, what do you do with all of the trash that you collect?
A lot of our trash, because we work with the county for a lot of our cleanups and stuff, and so the county helps us with all the back roads. We have a lot of big dumping items, and so the county helps us pick some of that stuff up.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Anna wants to know, do you help with all the animals or do you solely focus on sea turtles?
The majority of my project has been sea turtles. I spread out to sharks one year because I really like sharks too. Sharks are really cool. But I would say that I help most animals because just doing generic trash cleanups helps anything. It helps us. It helps any animal really. But I focus mainly on turtles, yes.
Very cool. What is the lifespan of a sea turtle?
A lifespan of a sea turtle, I'm pretty sure, don't get me wrong, I could be wrong. I don't want to be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the sea turtle research people have estimated that they originally estimated, I think 60 years, but they've known some more that have gone over that too. So there's all that other stuff. And I think that's loggerhead sea turtles. I'm not sure about the others. I don't know.
Very cool. I know that you mentioned that you have helped with nesting along the coast. Where do turtles make their nests?
Well, a lot of the sea turtles I work with, generally on the beach, you'll find them up closer to the dunes away from the ocean, but you can find them really anywhere on the beach. I don't know. I think most sea turtle, like along the beach here, you can kind of just find them anywhere. They don't have a lot of, I'm trying to answer this the best I can, but so sea turtles really lay their eggs where, I think it depends for some sea turtles, because I know there's studies on it about how sea turtles will come back to the nest, the areas where they originally laid. or where they were born at. And so I think a lot of that is you'll find a lot of reoccurring turtles in a lot of areas. And so a lot of sea turtles will nest in generally the same beaches. And so it's a lot, but they'll nest really anywhere on the beach. Mostly up higher is the better option for sea turtle survival, but you don't want to nest too high up in the dunes, or that you risk predators and roots and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I know when I've been at Jekyll Island and things, when the turtles are nesting, you have to be really careful on the beach, and I know there are a lot of teams that go out and help with that, so that's very cool. Catherine wants to know, how many turtles have you helped and saved?
Well, I can't really say an accurate number. I can't really give you a number. I don't know the statistics of that, but I'd like to think that I've saved a lot of sea turtles with not only my trash cleanups, but when I do my fundraisers, it goes to all these different sea turtle organizations that are working actively to help with conservation. So I would say that really, I can't give you an exact number, but I've saved many.
For sure. Emily is writing down another question that just came through the chat, so give us just a second. I know I'm just rapid firing questions at you, so.
I know, it's good, it's good.
Okay. How much trash do you pick up in a day when you do your projects?
So one year when we did our trash-a-thon, which was like 1 mile generally of cleanup, we found, I'm trying to give you a pound number, but total, for all of those 10 miles, it was 425, I think, about. And so pounds of trash. And so generally we find, it's really a lot we generally find, because I can't give you an exact number. I hate it because I don't have the numbers on me, but I know we have other stuff about it. But a lot of the, generally we'll find a lot of small items too, but total, I think, I'm trying to give an accurate number because I don't really know off the top of my head. But
yeah, it's okay if you don't have an accurate number, because then just direct.
But I know we find a lot of stuff,
yeah.
because we live in such a rural area. Generally, if you were to go into a city and clean up, I'm sure cities are nasty too, but it's just a lot larger garbage here because we're in a rural area and people can just illegally dump all the time, and it's not great at all. And a lot of the cleanups we do are on boat ramps and stuff where a lot of that isn't being mandated, and so we just find a lot all the time.
Mm-hmm. Very true. So this isn't a question, it's a comment, but Arjab, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, says, thank you for sharing your journey with us. So there's a little comment there. And then Anna would like to know, at what age did you start helping turtles?
I think I've answered one like this one, but I don't know. I started at 5, 2013, I think. Yeah, maybe. But so I don't know. I started young, and I recommend to start young because it really gets you into preservation, and it really gets, especially kids, because you're just so inspired all the time, and so it gives motivation when you're younger. And I don't know, as long as you have an adult with you when you're a kid at any age, cleanups, helping turtles, any of that, I mean, I recommend it for any age.
Very good. Okay, well, I think that's it for the Q&A session. So thank you again for your presentation and for taking the time to answer everyone's questions.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So if anyone is interested in learning more about Hannah's Trash for Turtles project, or even joining in with her efforts, please be sure to visit her website at earthinspiredkids.com, which is on the screen. Next, we have our final video of the day, once again, featuring the Georgia Sea Turtle Education Center. So I'm going to go ahead and get that going.
Hello everyone, my name is Olivia and I'm an AmeriCorps educator here at the Georgia Sea Turtle Center. I have a couple friends with me this morning. We have Celeste, who's going to be helping me today, as well as Jules, our loggerhead hatchling. We have Mary Kevin, our box turtle, and Mingus, our diamondback terrapin. This holiday season, consider giving your hatchling the gift of education in the form of Scoot-approved books. Scoot-approved books are scientifically accurate and have been approved by our mascot, Scoot, who is a loggerhead turtle. This morning, we're going to be reading Where Should Turtle Be?, which is a book by author Susan Ring. Everybody ready? Let's get started. Late one night, when you couldn't hear a sound, there came a cracking and a popping, something moving on the ground. Inch by inch, a turtle slowly broke away from its nest in the beach and headed to the bay. Guided by the lights, he knew they were the key to finding his new home, wherever that should be. But the lights weren't stars, and the lights weren't the moon. They were houses and cars, and he turned too soon. When the turtle stopped to rest by an old and crooked tree, he said, "I think I'm lost. This isn't where I ought to be." Little turtle cried, and with his tiny voice he said, "I'm not where I should be. I'm in the woods instead." A bear came out when he heard the turtle's plea. He said, "A box turtle, that's what you could be. You wouldn't have to swim, you could feast on fruit, you could crawl around the forest and sleep a lot to boot." Do you sleep a lot, Mary Kevin? Turtle tried it for a while, but he couldn't stick to it. He was not a box turtle, and he just couldn't do it. "No, thank you," said the turtle. "It's just not me. I don't really think that's what I'm supposed to be." And so he walked on. When the turtle stopped to rest by a cattail in the sun, he said, "Where am I now? Can you help me? Anyone?" Little turtle cried, and with his tiny voice he said, "I'm not where I should be. I'm by this pond instead." A frog jumped down when he heard the turtle's plea. He said, "A painted turtle, that's what you could be. You could sun on logs, you could munch on bugs, you could stroll around the pond and slurp down slugs." Turtle tried it for a while, but he couldn't stick to it. He was not a painted turtle, and he just couldn't do it. "No, thank you," said the turtle. "It's just not me. I really don't think that's what I'm supposed to be." And so he walked on. Turtle was unhappy, trudging through the salty marsh. The sun was hot, the mud was deep, the habitat was harsh. He pulled and yanked and flailed around in the icky, sticky, muddy ground. Turtle tried without much luck, but sat there stuck in gobs of muck. A beetle flew down when he heard the turtle's plea. He said, "A diamondback terrapin, that's what you could be. That's you, Minkus. You could crawl on the mud, you could crunch salty snails, you could also eat clams, and—" "Wait!" the turtle shouted. "I won't try it for a day. I'm not a terrapin, and I must be on my way." Then the turtle whispered, "You know, it's just not for me. I really don't think that's what I'm supposed to be." Then Beetle tickled Turtle's shell. The turtle laughed so hard that, pop, he flew from the mud about a mile and a yard. The little turtle cried, and with his tiny voice he said, "I was looking for my home, and ouch, my head hurts instead." A crab scurried down when he heard the turtle's plea. He pointed and he said, "Out there, that's where you ought to be. Out there, little turtle, it's well within your reach." Then Turtle looked around and saw he had landed on the beach. Is that where you came from, Jules? Inch by inch, he headed out that way, from the soft and sandy beach to the salty silver bay. Then Turtle slid in and he shouted, "This is me, because I'm supposed to be a turtle in the sea."
I hope that you all enjoyed listening to that story. Hopefully you'll have a better understanding of how human activities can impact even the smallest of ocean animals. Next up is our final activity for the day, a turtle weaving project. Don't worry if you don't have an activity bag. My lovely assistant Emily will put the link in the chat for all of the materials that you're going to need.
You'll start by coloring your 3 popsicle sticks in whatever colors you want to do. I'm going to start out with a dark green on each stick, and then I plan on moving on to a lighter color shade as it goes along. You're going to want to save room towards the end and make it a lightest shade as possible, because towards the end of some of the sticks, you will be creating a face and part of their feet. Always make sure that wherever you're coloring, that it's on a surface. If you're using markers, that it doesn't end up on that surface. And if you want, you can just keep going with the same color. You don't have to change out colors. You can also use coloring pencils, or you can use crayons, or you could even use paint. Whatever works best for you. And of course, it doesn't have to be green, because not all turtles are just green. Some turtles have brown, some turtles have black, some turtles even have white. So now, on one of your turtles, on the bottom right here, on the shorter end, you're going to want to draw a little face. So these can have eyes, and it can be whatever color you like. And hopefully your turtle's pretty happy. Well, I'm going to make mine pretty happy. And then on these two and these two, you're going to create their feet. So making like little lines where their toes would be. All right, and that is the beginning of the craft.
Take the long piece of t-shirt yarn, wrap it around the center, and tie it in a small knot. Continue wrapping it around the center 2 to 3 times. Repeat this same motion, but go diagonally one way and then the other. Once that step is complete, wrap it around a stick, then place your yarn around the next stick to the right. Loop it around, push the yarn down towards the middle of the body, and then continue to the next stick. Keep repeating the weaving from one stick to the next until you have about 1 inch of yarn left. Don't worry if your yarn breaks. Just tie a knot and keep weaving. Finish the body of the turtle by tying the yarn into a knot on the underside.
I hope you all had fun making your awesome turtles. Stop by the Decula Library in the month of June if you would like to show us your craft, or you can email a picture to daclib@gwinnettpl.org with WOD as the subject line. If you would like to read more about turtles, please be sure to have a look at these books and resources from GCPL that wraps up Decula's Library's World Ocean Day celebration. If you missed any of our earlier presentations, please be on the lookout for us to post them to GCPL's YouTube page for you to view later. We also want to send out a huge thank you to our speakers who partnered with us to make this happen. Marion Baker from the Go Fish Education Center, Jim Page from the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, Peggy Whitlow from CHARM, Dr. Meryl Alber from the University of Georgia, and Hannah Bonvechio from Trash for Turtles. You are all awesome and we greatly appreciate you. Also, we'd like to ask you one more time to please fill out our brief survey about today's program. We would love your input on how to continue to improve, and you will be entered for a drawing to win a door prize. We also wanted to remind you one more time to sign up for GCPL's Summer Reading Challenge on Beanstack to log books or minutes, complete activities for badges, including a World Ocean Day badge, and win prizes. You can visit your local branch to sign up or visit our website at gwinnettpl.org and follow the links to get to the sign up page. As always, if you get stuck, you can call our customer contact center for assistance. All of us on the World Ocean Day team, thank you for joining us and sincerely hope today's speakers and activities will inspire you to join the effort to restore and conserve our oceans. Thank you.